Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to Crime and Sports early and ad-free right now. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.
In the depths of an Atlanta forest, a clash between activists and authorities ends in tragedy. I'm Matthew Scher, and on my new podcast, We Came to the Forest, we expose the hidden truths behind a shootout that left one activist dead and countless lives forever changed. Binge all episodes of We Came to the Forest ad-free on Wondery Plus.
Hello, and welcome to Crime and Sports.
Yay!
Oh, yay indeed, Jimmy. Yay indeed. My name is James Pietragallo. I'm here with my co-host.
I am Jimmie Whisman.
Thank you, folks, so much for joining us on another crazy, wild, brain-damaged edition of Crime and Sports. And we have a very good episode this week, a crazy episode. We have a wrestler this week.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So those are pretty much objectively and without any doubt or any complaint or any debate our most beloved episodes are the wrestling episodes, because they're always the craziest.
They're fun.
They're fun. They're nuts, because wrestlers are crazy, just like they're comedians that hit each other. So that basically they're crazy people. So they're always a good time. But we're going to get into that, and we'll get into who it is. But first, thank you guys so much for everything you've done for us this week. Your reviews, iTunes and beyond, Apple Podcasts, the purple icon, whatever the hell that is.
It's really kind of you.
It's kind of you. Thank you, guys. If you haven't yet, please get on there. Give us 5 stars. I know it takes a second to sign in, but it really helps us out on the business end. Doesn't matter what you say. You can say you're following instructions, following directions. It's not for our ego, is what we're saying here. It's just, it helps us a lot. It feeds iTunes and that funky algorithm they have for their charts that we don't know how that works. And if you listen on other platforms, please, if you can rate and review on those, do that also. Always helps out. So thank you for that. Everybody who's gone to shutupandgivememurder.com this week, thank you for checking all that out. We have new shirts up. I know Sarah's been busy busting stuff out, and she fixed some leggings too. She made leggings different, so there's the logos are different on the leggings. We have skateboards now.
I love those.
I know she was making, at some point there's going to be like these tote bag things that are pretty cool, like backpacks. People have wanted those. Cool. So we got all that stuff coming. So check that out. Check out, you can look for upcoming live shows, because there will be a whole shitload of live shows this year. That is coming very, very soon. We're looking at some cold weather places right now. So,
but it'll be nice time of year.
Sort of.
Fairly.
We'll see. It'll be all over times a year. But we'll just say Midwest, we're coming to you. And we know that for a fact. So we'll be there. You can guess where we're coming, but it'll be all over the place. We're coming all over the place. I'll tell you that right now.
So vile.
No, it's not. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful act, Jimmy. Beautiful act. So thank all of you for that. Also, thank you guys for everybody, all of our wonderful producers that we're going to talk about at the end of the show. They make this show run. So we're going to give them their due at the end of the show and praise them to the highest places. So if you want to become one of those producers, you can do that very easily. There's a link right from shutupandgivememurder.com. You can head over to patreon.com/crimeinsports, or you can make a one-time donation at PayPal using our email address, which is crimeinsports@gmail.com, and all that stuff. And also listen to Small Town Murder, obviously. If you're not, I don't know what the hell you're thinking. Most of the Crime and Sports listeners also listen to also listen to Small Town Murder. It's the way it works. There's just a lot more of them listen to Small Town Murder,
which is the weirder part.
Now,
I think this one's more fun.
This is more fun, I think. So this episode here, we're going back into wrestling, and I have to say, and we'll find out, you'll know at the end what I'm talking about. I did not plan anything the way this fell in terms of schedule,
timing and stuff.
I don't follow I don't follow dates of current wrestling and all that much. So I didn't know when WrestleMania weekend was. I honestly thought it was last week, and I didn't know. So the fact that WrestleMania is coming up this week is dumb luck, and the fact that I had this on the schedule before they announced that this guy will be talked about too is a complete coincidence of everything. It wasn't a planned action. So
if you love WrestleMania and you love wrestling altogether, when you watch WrestleMania this week, you're going to see a lot of this fuck.
And if you're going to hear about him in a section before the show, in another thing. But also, if you don't love wrestling, you're going to love this. It doesn't matter because it's a crazy episode. But let's get right into it here with James Henry Neidhart.
Yeah.
You know, that is Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
Oh, okay.
You know Jim the Anvil. Anybody out there who doesn't know who Jim the Anvil Neidhart is, you probably have seen him. He's one of those guys that's his goatee is iconic. Yeah. He's got a pointy, like red goatee that's it's long and it's pointy.
I love it.
And his goatee is the equivalent of a Raleigh Fingers mustache. You'd say like Raleigh Fingers mustache for the curly one, and you'd say Jim the Anvil goatee. Like that's the reference point for that. So like even people who aren't wrestling fans would say a Jim the Anvil Neidhart goatee.
What's his middle name?
Henry.
Oh.
Henry, which is his father's first name.
Oh.
So he's not a junior.
Gotcha.
Of course, his mother's name is James, so you never know. Wouldn't that be weird? I'm sorry. His mother's name is Frank, as a matter of fact, actually. We apologize for that. So, Jim the Anvil here. This is the crazy stories of wrestling. This is right in the sweet spot. This is right in the taint of the crazy.
Did he start in the 70s?
He started in the late 70s and was a star through the 80s and early 90s, and right all through the craziness and the drugs and the insanity and the 300 plus days on the road per year and all that. Like he was smack dab in the middle of that. He's a big dude too. We'll talk about that. He's from Montebello, California. He's where he's born. He's a California guy, but later on he's always in Florida. Fuck does he love Florida. He moved there.
Wrestlers just love Florida in general.
Fucking love Florida. I don't know. It's because in the 80s, this is my theory. I have a theory on this. Number one, it's cheap in Florida. And in the 80s, it was very cheap in Florida. And also there's no state income tax there.
Okay.
So there's reasons for that right away for like an independent contractor to want to live there. But I really, really think it's the cheapest place where they could go sit out and get tans all the time.
That's what I was just going to say. It
It's
runs
a tan
the gamut.
thing.
The whole state runs the gamut from poor to rich, and all of them are on a beach somewhere.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what it is.
And in the 80s, you had to have a tan. Everybody had a tan in the 80s. Look at 80s wrestlers. Nobody didn't have a tan. If someone didn't have a tan, it stood out like, whoa, what the hell's wrong with that guy?
Not just wrestling, really fucking everybody.
But wrestling was like, literally, if you came in white, they'd be like, you're not even tan. What are you doing there, pal? Get in the booth. What's wrong with you? Put your shirt back on. For the first time. What's wrong with you, pal?
Yeah.
So
even in Dirty Dancing, everybody's tan, and it was cloudy and rainy pretty much the whole fucking movie.
It was in the Catskills. Ever been to the Catskills?
No.
It's not known for its fucking outdoor splendor as far as the sunshine goes.
Yet everybody looks like a fucking Hollywood model.
Old Jewish people went there. Old Jewish people went there on vacation, and then they put the game farm up there. That's what all I knew it as a kid. It was a farm, like this zoo place where you went and like fucking pet llamas and shit, and that was what it was.
Even the guy from fucking Special Victims Unit had a tan.
Yeah, everybody
what was his name?
Yeah.
Is it James? Was it James? I don't remember his name.
Jerry Orbach.
Jerry Orbach.
Jerry Orbach, though, come on. He's got the hair, the tan. Jerry Orbach's a slick guy. He's a 60s doctor, too, back then. He's got to have a fucking tan.
Everybody.
Jerry, he hits the golf course. That's where he gets his tan, on the golf course, Mr. Orbach.
That's true. He was putting with the wife.
The wrestlers, though, these guys literally would, when they describe what they do, they'd be like, we get into a town off the plane, you go check into the hotel, you get something to eat, you go work out, you hit the tanning booth, you do, like, that was part of the routine.
It's sprinkled in there.
Was tanning. Look at Hulk Hogan. It looks like a fucking hot dog for a reason.
Yeah,
it looks like a hot dog that's been left on the rotisserie at AM PM for about 3,000 too many rotations.
That's true.
He's just singed, and that's what I mean. It's weird. So anyway, he grows up to be a big guy. He's about 6 foot to 6'1" in that area. Wrestling, you never know.
Yeah.
Andre the Giant's anywhere from 6'11" to 7'5". So they used to list Hulk Hogan at 6'9" back in the day. It's like, he's not 6'9". What are you talking about? But the NBA does the same thing.
They do.
So they listed Barkley at 6'6.5" for years. And it's like, that bro he's 6'4".
Yeah.
Sorry.
At best.
Yeah. Mr. Barkley is 6'4". been eye to eye with him. He's my fucking height. He's 6'4", trust me, not 6'6.5". So he's about 280 pounds though.
That's a lot.
And he's solid.
Yeah.
Solid. You remember him, he's a fire plug. He's built like he has like what looks like a beer belly, but is probably more solid than a fucking wall. It's one of those things.
He looks like he's inflated.
And he like
looks with a needle, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But he doesn't look like steroid strong either.
No, not steroid needle.
Yeah.
Like
like
a basketball needle.
Yeah, like you're pumping him up. But he looks like he looks like a guy who could just bend down and rip a tree stump out of the fucking ground just in natural strength. Like that's what he looks like. Like the type of dude where if you bumped into him at a bar, you'd apologize.
Absolutely.
You go, hey, sorry, brother. Yeah, I'll fucking buy you a beer if I need to. Like I'm not gonna fight you. You're a monster.
His nipples look like they have balloon knots around them.
Yeah,
the balloon knot ripples. Like that's how fucking swollen he is.
He's a very sturdy,
big dude.
Big, thick fucking legs on him. Just a big, thick, tough son of a bitch.
You bump into him, you're like, I felt balloon knots around those nipples. I am so sorry.
I'm sorry, sir. Yeah, exactly. With that big goatee and shit. No, thank you. I don't want to fight this guy. And he had like this squat kind of and he had a flat top too, which made it look even more kind of smushed, like big round head,
square,
sitting on a thick neck. You're like, ooh boy,
square on the top and bottom, and then rounded on the sides,
and not much neck.
No,
it was just a big. Oh man, he's a muscular dude. Yeah, he goes to high school at Newport Harbor High School in California.
That's a nice area.
It's a nice area, and he's a terrific athlete in high school. He plays football, but track and field is his main gig.
Really?
Shot put, and you look at him and that looks like a shot putter. I mean, just the legs behind him to throw it. He was an amazing shot putter, like all state and all that sort of thing. He was he did anything basically in track and field that was strength that had to do with power,
discus,
anything like that.
Yeah,
he held the California high school record in shot put from 1973 until 1985.
That's a fascinating thing to be doing.
Yeah, just throwing a heavy ball.
Yeah.
And it came in handy later on as he had to toss another thing we'll talk about, how he got his nickname.
The Anvil.
The Anvil. Exactly. Here.
I knew a dude in high school that was real. I think he had a state record in shot put, but I never understood how you got into that.
I don't know what would make you think, you know what, I bet I could throw that
Somebody's got to talk you into that, right?
Super heavy ball, I bet I could throw it far. Yeah, I feel like that's like you went out for just basic track and field shit when your parents told you to do sports, and then they were like,
and your coach was like, "Hey,
you look strong.
Here's something that you've probably never done before. Push this against your face,
and then just
spin around in a few circles, and then out of that third circle, fucking throw it.
Really throw it good." Well, it's
so weird.
Fucking weird. It's a weird skill to have, to know to develop. We'll put it that way. You don't just whip that out at a party.
Right.
Here, watch this. You're like, why did he do that?
I remember the game on Atari. I think it was a fucking athlon something.
Yeah,
that was so much fun.
Yeah. No, the shot put. It's just I feel like if you try out for track and you're not very fast, they're like, so shot put. How do you feel about that? You know, you're a little chunky for the actual running.
Right.
You're not going to put you on the relay team or anything, but I bet you can throw this thing. Yeah, I bet you can throw this.
Put that barrel ass behind this little ball.
And Neidhart had a big giant ass on him. Yeah, later on a big pink ass in his tights. So we'll talk about later when we talk about some of his stuff.
This is great already.
Oh, it gets crazy fast too. This is one of those stories that is paced so well with fuck ups. The fuckery is paced throughout it. You're going to get fuckery, all sorts of funny shit, more fuckery, more. It's just terrific.
It's like a chapter book.
It is a chapter book. Yeah, this is a story that it feels like somebody wrote it just for us. So it's wonderful, except for the fact, well, we'll find out. It's not all wonderful.
Okay.
So he ends up graduating from high school with a shot put record and everything else, and all that. And he's kind of a highly touted athlete because he's got these track and field records. So he ends up going to UCLA.
Oh.
Which, if you want to go for sports and you live in Southern California, not a bad place to be.
That's
right
thing.
There. Yeah. He plays football there, but I can't find him on rosters here. I don't know what he was doing, or from what I could gather, this is a little bit fuzzy. They concentrate mainly on his track and field exploits, but it seems like he was on the team, and then he wasn't on the team, then he was on the team again.
Interesting.
Because if he was on the track team, then he could do that. That happens sometimes if guys play other sports. Sometimes if they play basketball and football, they'll take a year off of one, and then they'll come back to it. That happens, but in the early 70s, it was a kind of a strange thing. So he's there also to do shot put, like I said. Now there's an article I found, a newspaper article from 1979 that discusses drug use in track and field.
What?
And he's a major example of why it's bad, why it's bad for these athletes. And basically, they're talking about guys that take uppers before events, which is just what athletes do. Baseball players, it was finally banned a couple years ago, but for 100 years they took greenies, which are just, pep pills. And, guys do that. They take
no-dos in high school. That's what everybody saw.
in the NFL, the guys take shitloads of caffeine pills. I mean, they're getting themselves up. And they would do the same thing, and they would have, drugs, obviously, back then. So they talk about at one point here, the way they put it, in track and field, the classic case is that of Jim Neidhart. That's how the article goes into him. So if you're the classic case, that's not good. He's a Californian who became accustomed to popping a couple of uppers before every track meet in Long Beach, where he was the leading high school shot putter in the country in 73. So they said he increased his drug intake through college, always. They called it a, quote, ill-fated college career.
Okay.
And then they said that he, quote, went on several legendary drug-induced rampages. So
in high school,
in college. Yeah, this is what Crime and Sports is all about.
Yes.
Legendary drug-induced rampages, I feel like, is the alternate title of the show. Crime and Sports, parentheses, legendary drug-induced rampages.
He's like the guy from The Program.
Kind of.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Slapping his face through windshields in the parking lot.
Fucking screaming and yelling and doing crazy shit. Yeah, that's exactly kind of what he's like, except he's doing the shit before meets,
before shot put.
He's getting himself so jacked up, and then afterwards he's still all jacked up, but he's not throwing a hard heavy ball anymore, so there's nothing to really take it out on.
Is this what happens in Olympic Village? I had no idea.
Oh, fuck yeah, they're beating the shit out of it. It's bedlam in there. You have no idea. It's fucking Thunderdome inside
that's amazing.
That Village, boy. They just go to town on each other. So, I guess in 1976, they call this the most notorious of his issues here. Sure. 1976, this was after the Pacific 8 Conference Championships, at Berkeley. Now, he was at UCLA. He's favored to win the shot put. I don't know if there's a big betting pool on this.
Vegas takes action.
It's pretty sad. You know what? You're a degenerate gambler.
Yes.
If you're gambling on college shot put fucking meets.
Fuck gambling on it. If you know the odds. If you're looking at what the fucking, is there a spread?
I'll give you 7-5 on Neidhart. That's weird. Yeah, you got a problem with that play.
Ridiculous.
So, he said, at this point he was favored to win, and we ended up coming in second, which he was favored by a lot to win. He was, it's him and everybody else, and he didn't win. He came in second. So apparently they said he'd been taking a shitload of amphetamines before the match, and he was all jacked up, and now he was super pissed that he lost. So these are, when you get a very angry man who's jacked up on a shitload of amphetamines, and he's pissed now that he lost too. This is bad stuff. So they said that, they said that he ended up trying to unwind, quote unquote, with tranquilizers and alcohol.
Oh, gee, that's how you...
to come down.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you got to come down. I mean, you can't
if you need more drugs to come down.
You can't just stay up that much. Now you got to drink and take tranquilizers. And you can see the wrestler cocktail that is dangerous in the future.
No wonder he loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, we say this every wrestling episode, but I will say it again. We find wrestlers fascinating because they're so much like comedians.
Yeah.
It is the exact same profession.
It's a lifestyle.
Mixed with violence is the only difference.
A lot of it.
But you're doing the same thing over and over, the same people, trying to make it look fresh.
Yep.
You're putting something over on them.
Yep.
Yeah, like with us. So with us going, the other day I was walking here. This wasn't the other day. We wrote that joke a year ago, and it might not have ever even fucking happened to us. It's the same thing with a wrestling match. Like, he happened to catch me with this move, and then I did this. And no, you had that planned out. We all know it. It's fine.
Or it was probably somebody told a comic a story out front of the club after a show and was like, you can use that in your skit. And they did.
Yeah. And they did. I'm
telling you. I was at Starbucks the other day. I don't even drink coffee.
I don't even drink. No, that's the thing. Yeah. Fuck, and it happens. So we find it very, very interesting, and especially the kind of comedy world business and the wrestling businesses are super mirrored.
Yeah.
They boom at the same time. Yeah. If you think about it, the 80s was the huge comedy boom, which was the exact same time as the huge wrestling boom.
That's a good point.
They were living the same lifestyles. Comics were making a lot of money, going all over the country, doing shitloads of drugs and rock and roll type of lifestyle, and the wrestlers were living the same lifestyle.
Again.
And now it's again. Yeah, because now it's a big, massive thing. Yeah. Only thing is the comics are way more debaucherous than the wrestlers nowadays.
That's true.
The wrestlers nowadays are like...
I don't know anybody calling in bomb threats on a bus because they don't like their seatmate.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, the wrestlers they're very kind of buttoned up nowadays. Yeah. They have to be. They're made them. Which is kind of why it's boring.
And they're also taking over the comedy clubs.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. They're taking over all the comedy clubs. So
what are we going to say? No, they're they're violent.
So next thing you know, our next live show, I have to hit you in the head with a fucking chair and DDT you on a stage because if they're coming to our house. We're coming to yours, motherfuckers. Let's do it.
I'll light the stage on fire and dive off the top.
Come on, motherfuckers. We'd last 3 minutes and then we'd both be in the hospital.
I'd probably be dead after 3 minutes.
I don't have health insurance. I'd be in an alley somewhere and Jimmie be convalescing in a hospital.
Getting my last rites read to me, but I'd be covered.
I'd have some street doctor. I paid $30 trying to set my leg with 2 2x4s and some duct tape. That's what I'd have.
This is gonna hurt, kid.
It's gonna hurt. I'm not gonna lie to you. And you're probably not gonna be able to walk right for a while.
Drink? Hey. I'm sorry. There's nothing I got for you.
Hey, you fucked there. So apparently tranquilizers and alcohol after the amphetamines made the Anvil, quote, a witness that said he, quote, just went berserk, which is quite the way of putting it. Yeah. At the time, he weighed more than 300 pounds, too.
That's a lot of berserk.
Aggressive, athletic. I mean, this isn't 300 sitting on your ass on the couch pounds. Right. This is college athlete, fucking works out every day.
Lethal weapon, 300 pounds.
Yeah, ready for athletic competition, 300 pounds. A big goddamn guy. They said that he took apart. They said that he pretty much dismantled his entire hotel room. Mm-hmm. Just took it apart, rock star style, much like a Motley Crue outing or a Van Halen fucking show. Then he tied 4 sheets. This is amazing. This is fucking awesome, by the way, okay? As bad as it is, I mean, it's obviously illegal and shit. I kind of wish I would have been able to do this at some point in my life because this is awesome. 300 pounds, mind you, doing this. Took his motel room apart, tied 4 bed sheets together, strapped a fire extinguisher on his back. You know where I'm going with this. I see the look on your face.
What did he do?
Then leapt like Tarzan off the 4th floor balcony with the fire extinguisher shooting off swinging, I'm sure doing it was fucking off a 4th floor hotel balcony.
He's got a propeller.
That's bananas. I'm the Rocket Man, and he's fucking
How the fuck did he get that to his back?
I have no idea.
One of the sheets for sure.
I'm sure he strapped it on and was like, let's do this shit, and then fucking that's awesome. First of all, that's a crazy, hilarious stunt. Like it's obviously the hotel's not going to be happy, but it's pretty fucking funny.
It's pretty good.
Like everybody that works at that hotel has a story they still tell now. Yeah. This giant fucking guy just leaps off the balcony with a fire extinguisher. Really? Every new employee hears that story. Yeah. See that balcony there?
Jim the Anvil jumped out of that with a fire extinguisher up his ass.
Yeah.
It gets better and better every time they tell it.
You should have seen him. He did a flip off of it. He
floated.
It was amazing.
It was in the air, just floating.
Well, he wasn't too graceful with this because you don't know how that's going to work.
No.
You don't. You ever gone on
You've
a
never
rope
seen
swing?
It happening. Right.
It's very hard to get a swing going. You need a few tries at it. He only had one shot at this. This is a one take kind of a thing here. And
we got enough dynamite for this one trick.
That's it. So it's a one shot. Right. This happens or it doesn't. So he instead of landing on another balcony, the kind of trajectory of the whole thing sent him through a plate glass window and into a 1st floor hotel room.
Yes.
So through a plate glass, you're sitting in your room, just chilling, and all of a sudden a 300-pound man with a fire extinguisher mounted upon his back shoots through your fucking window and lands on the floor. What kind of strange day is that?
It's like a John Candy movie.
Absolutely. And then this guy gets up. He's like, oh, wait, sorry about that. The 300-pound guy. Yeah. What are y'all doing in my room? He does Dean Martin. then passes out from a fucking horrible concussion that will damage his brain for decades to come.
From a slight brain hemorrhage.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. So he ended up being okay from this somehow because he's
no, he wasn't.
I mean, no, but he wasn't.
That's the stage, though.
Yeah, that sets a stage.
Yeah.
UCLA wound up with a $5,500 bill out of this. This is in the late 70s, so you have to fuck a lot of things up to cost $5,500 in the 70s.
Yeah.
It's like 20 grand now, for Christ's sake. So he ended up, they ended up parting ways, we'll say, UCLA and Jim.
That's the end of his scholarship?
Well, they said, you know what, Jim? That's probably worth more than your whole scholarship in the 70s, just that window.
For shot put?
And yeah, this isn't like a money sport. I know people are betting on it, Jim. Don't get me wrong, but it's not a money sport. Maybe if you still played football well. So he ends up eventually transferring to the University of Hawaii, which, hey, what the fuck? Why not?
Yeah.
That sounds great, right?
Yeah.
Jesus, he likes the beach, this guy.
Every time I hear that there's colleges there, I'm like, why doesn't everybody apply for that?
Why is not everyone going there?
Fuck Yale.
Like college football players, they have a football team. You would think they'd be like, I want to play for fucking Hawaii.
And they got good ones. They got good players.
But they don't end up getting a lot of players because because of their time zone. They're not on TV.
Oh, that's a good point.
So that's why you never see Hawaii on TV because they're on at like fucking 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So what
are they? 6 hours ahead before us?
Yeah, they're way out there. So it's that's why players don't go there because they're not seen on TV and you don't get a lot of publicity if you play for Hawaii. But I mean, if they were fucking national champions, you'd get a lot of publicity. So if a bunch of guys went there, I don't know, I'd want to go there.
If they recruit and get good players now with the advent of DVR and TiVo and shit like that, you could probably if you could get your shit on TV,
if you could just be a good team, you're going to be fine. You know, I mean, guys, Boise State turned into a fucking thing, and nobody knew anything about Boise State, and that turned into a powerhouse. So
but they are on the mainland. That's
they are on the sort of. It's Idaho. It's kind of the mainland. It's up there.
That shit's almost Canada. You don't realize how far north Boise is.
I feel like Idaho's not even really a state. It's just a Canadian estuary. Just like it's just this little land between. It's like the DMZ.
Yeah.
There's our demilitarized zone. It's just Idaho.
The shit stretches from Utah to Canada.
It's huge.
It's gigantic.
It's a giant weird.
It's a frozen Texas.
A frozen potato Texas. Idaho.
Just as weird to people.
Idaho. Potato Texas. Just as weird to people. You know, Texas, but potatoes. Instead of cows, picture potatoes. So Jim here, he ends up going back to UCLA after this somehow. He doesn't fly in Hawaii. He doesn't like it there. He comes back, goes back to UCLA. But I guess he's dismissed from the team after the 1977 track season. And we'll talk about why, I believe, in a second here. Now, he tried to go back to Hawaii and then back to UCLA, but neither of them wanted him again.
Really?
So he went from UCLA to Hawaii, back to UCLA, and then tried to go back to Hawaii and back to UCLA again.
That's too much.
And it didn't work. So he enrolled at Cal State Long Beach on a track scholarship, but it was revoked because he was declared ineligible because I'm sure of all of his transferring. I'm sure there's some rules that involve your eligibility. Yeah. Now he also has 4 kids now, and he's got a mortgage. He's got a lot of problems, this guy.
He's got a job as a CPA somewhere.
It's tough.
Your life is real already. You don't need us anymore.
You got to be at the factory at 7:30 tomorrow morning. So how long is this track meet going to take? I got to tell my supervisor if I'm going to be there or not. So apparently this is, I guess, the ineligibility of the whole thing. He threatened to beat up the track coach, Ron Ellis.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. Yeah, that's, you know what? I'm looking at you and you don't seem as eligible as you did 5 minutes ago. I'm just... It's weird. 5 minutes ago, like, you were pretty eligible. Yeah. Now I'm like, he doesn't look very eligible, this guy. Wow. Yeah. He ends up also, he ends up being arrested for extortion out of this because he threatens to beat up the coach if he's not given $1,200.
Yeah, that's certainly extortion.
I'll beat you up if you don't pay me $1,200 because that was the equivalent of what was left on his scholarship. So he said, you give me $1,200 so I can, because he felt they owed it to him, whatever. And he said he wanted to train independently. So rather than go through, I don't know if there's paperwork you can submit to try to get reimbursed for something, he decides to go, just cut out the middleman, threaten to kick the shit out of the track coach. And he's figured that would work.
That ought to get it.
He ends up spending a month in jail for extortion. He ends up in L.A. County for a month.
That's awesome.
On an extortion charge. And we will talk about that in a second also.
So he's clearly not in college for the education. He's not looking for that.
Yeah, that's
not his thing.
No, I don't think that's at all his thing at all. They talk about a teammate of his talks about the incident when he goes through the window.
Yeah,
and he says, "quote You can take 20 milligram capsule of obetrol, which is a combination of they describe it as a combination of methamphetamine and the active ingredients of dexedrine and Adderall.
Okay,
so this is a fucking upper and a half.
Oh, yeah.
This is like a Long Island iced tea of uppers, basically, here. He says you could take 20 milligram capsule of this and, quote, scoot along for a whole day and go lift all kinds of weights and throw things and boogie around most of the night, is what he said. When you take a half dozen of them, like Neidhart did, 120 milligrams, you could fly out a window, which is exactly what he did.
With a fire extinguisher.
With a fire extinguisher.
Right up your asshole.
You could kind of get a little out of your mind, basically, here from that. And, they talk about the whole methamphetamine culture in track, and the fact that basically everybody on the team was taking some sort of methamphetamine before the in baseball. I know it used to be considered if you weren't taking greenies, you weren't trying.
Right. It
was one of those things like, oh, what are you not like? You don't want
to be a part of this.
You don't want to play well today. I mean, we're all ready to play well today. Why won't you agree to play well today? That's what it was. It was the guys felt like they had to take them.
Why would you agree to play?
Why are you just trying to lose? You're trying to lose. You realize that, right?
You're actively losing right now at this moment.
Dick.
Just sitting there without those greenies in you.
What a fucking complete dick.
Why won't you agree to play hard?
Jesus Christ. They talk about this guy, one of the track people says, athletes, particular football players, prefer methamphetamine because it creates less confusion in the psyche than benzedrine, which bennies are like what fucking, Hell's Angels took in the 60s and shit. Like get some bennies and Seconal and all that
stuff.
shit. Yeah. They said, or dexedrine, you get amped up, but it doesn't confuse you and make you nervous as bennies and dexies do. You can do what you have to without losing your cool and getting shaky, which, you don't want to be shaky. Out there in public here.
Shaky sounds bad.
That's not great at all. So after all this going back and forth, UCLA, all this bullshit here. No shit. He says that it was attempted extortion. Jim says later on is what he was in trouble for. The school obviously were, they look down on threatening their coaches for money.
So he's going to draw the line at I didn't get the money. That's what.
He didn't get the money.
Right.
But
so that's attempted.
He does get a jail sentence. Yeah. If he got the money, then it's extortion. Yeah.
But he didn't pay up. So
he didn't pay up. So
I just tried.
Yeah. If you try to murder someone, they don't die. It's attempted murder.
I guess that's a good point.
You have to be dead for the murder to be a murder.
You got to pay up for it to be actual extortion.
That's right. Pay up, bitch. That's extortion. I don't know what to tell you. You wanted it to be extortion. Give him $1,200. Now it's extortion. It's up to the victim at that point, really. They can choose what charge this is going to be, attempted or not. It's not really up to this guy at that point.
Just don't die. Just hang on.
It's one of the few crimes where it's really up to the victim what the crime's going to be. Think about it. That doesn't happen very often. Yeah, it depends on what you do.
That's got to be the only crime.
It's very few crimes like that, I would say, that are, depending on the victim's reaction and what they do. You can choose, you know what, I like this guy. I'm not going to give him the money because I think he'll go to jail for less time on an attempted than on a carried out on extortion. Listen, no, I don't have $1,200. Sir, I like you too much to give you this $1,200.
I'm not going to give it to you, but I am certainly calling the police.
Oh, I will call the police. So anyway, he said that he was in L.A. County the same time. I guess he said they were bringing Charles Manson through, and he was staying at the county jail for that time. He said he served 21 days of a 30-day sentence in county jail there. He said he watched Manson walk by several times with guards and shit. And he said it was kind of interesting.
That's not interesting. That's terrifying.
Yeah, it was in the 70s too. Be like, oh shit, Charles Manson.
Look
That's
that.
fucking crazy.
Little fuck.
And I was going to say Neidhart to Manson.
Yeah.
Like Neidhart could take Manson and just clap his hands together and explode his head like a fucking Cheeto. Like it was just
sight unseen. If you put those two men in front of a camera and ask the public, guess which one is Charlie?
Yeah,
they're not picking that.
Guess which one the murderer is? Yeah,
which one's the bad fuck?
It depends.
Or who's just an attempted extorter?
Was it done with bare hands? Because I'm going to guess that one for bare hands, and weapons, I'm going to guess this guy. He says that nobody fucked with him in jail because he's a 300-pound fucking psychopath college athlete who looks. He doesn't look like a guy to be trifled with. We'll put it. This is before the goatee, but he's still a 300 pounds of fucking muscle monster.
And tried to extort his coach, a man that's so close to him.
Yeah,
possibly the closest person in his life next to his parents.
Fuck that guy.
But he's willing to threaten him.
Yeah,
I'd be afraid of him too.
No shit. I guess so.
That doesn't mean shit to him.
No, it's What do you do now?
Yeah.
So now he says, I guess I'll try out for the NFL.
Really?
That's his goal here. So he tries out for the Dallas Cowboys because he was an All-American defensive tackle in high school. So, and he's a big fucking, athletic guy.
Right.
But he ends up, I guess he goes to camp, and I have a quote from him on that. But I guess he says that he was dismissed from the team when they learned that he was awaiting a trial for extortion in Long Beach. They were like, no thanks. You're not even.
The Cowboys thought better of this?
Yeah, even the Cowboys. This was Landry back then. This is not Jerry Jones. So this was, I feel like they were like, okay, let's look at the strikes against him. Yeah. Number one, didn't play college football. That's a huge strike considering everybody else here, all the other 100 guys played college football.
They've all been in a huddle.
That's a problem. Number two, he's got fucking charges. We might not even have him. Like, what are we doing here? Not to mention, he went off a hotel room balcony last night in our hotel room and crashed into fucking Tony Dorsett's room. So it's a little weird. Roger fucking Staubach doesn't like him crashing through windows. Hey, everybody, just going to take a quick break from the show to tell you a little bit about Indochino.
Yeah, Indochino.com.
Oh, yes. Indochino is the world's most exciting made-to-measure menswear company. They make suits and shirts to your exact measurements for unparalleled fit and comfort, and there really is no comparison from off the rack to being fitted for something.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Night and day.
Yeah, it is night and day. If you're getting married soon, Indochino has tons of options to outfit your wedding party. You'll love their wide selection of high-quality fabrics and colors, plus the option to personalize details like lapel linings, pockets, buttons, and more. Visit a stylist at one of their showrooms across North America and have them take your measurements personally, or you can measure at home yourself and shop online at Indochino.com. You choose the fabric, your design, customizations, and submit your measurements with your choices. Then you relax while your suit gets professionally tailored and mailed to you in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And you've been to the store.
It's unbelievable.
You went to the Indochino and got fitted, and that shirt is a nice shirt.
It's the nicest shirt I own.
You were telling me about what you took it. You went out to dinner, and people you were getting stranger compliments. That's a nice shirt. Which
I have a
is
story
weird
to tell you about this shirt because I designed it.
Yeah,
the guy, the nicest person in the world, measured me and showed me the shirts that I should be buying.
Yeah,
and I got to pick out all kinds, from cuffs to buttons to collar, all kinds.
And he
of
was
things.
right.
Dead right.
That's right. This week, our listeners, crime and sports listeners, you guys can get any premium Indochino suit for just $359 at Indochino.com with the code CIS at checkout. That's 50% off the regular price for made-to-measure premium suit, plus shipping is free. You can't beat this. Indochino.com, promo code CIS for any premium suit for just $359 and free shipping. Once you go custom, you do not go back.
And now back to the show.
So, he ends up trying for them, and that doesn't work out. He ends up there. Where do you think he's going to go from there, Jimmie?
The Raiders.
The fucking Raiders is exactly where he goes. That's why I asked you, because I knew what you'd answer.
Fucking Yahtzee.
And I knew it would be correct.
I'm impressed that he chose that.
Yeah, he was like, well, that was the mid-70s.
At that point, he could have gone to the Steelers.
No, that was the mid-70s. Okay. That was the time when the Raiders were looking for fuck-ups. Okay. They were literally, like, I've read books about the 70s Raiders. They were actively looking for fuck-ups, because their whole thing was, where can we... Because everybody else, otherwise it's all even.
Yeah.
Like, we all have a draft, we all all do this.
Yeah.
You got to get an edge. And it's like, where do you find the guys that slip between the cracks?
Yeah.
Who's that small college guy that runs a 4.3 40 where you can get him on the team? That's where the Raiders are at.
How did the Steelers get all their criminals?
Oh, they did the same thing.
Okay.
They did the same thing. But the Steelers built it in a little bit of different way. They didn't get, like the Raiders were looking for cast-offs too.
Got it.
Free agents, guys from the fucking CFL who got arrested too many times to be in the CFL. They'll be like, we'll give him a whirl. Fuck it. He seems like he's our kind of guy.
Right.
They had a certain kind of guy they looked for, and it was a tough, kind of swaggering guy.
9 months in county. That's our kind of guy.
Our guy hanging out with, in County with Charles Manson.
Steelers were a little more regimented. They looked for clean cut guys, put them in a 9x9 chain link fence, and then just fed them raw meat.
And then fed them and cocaine.
Yeah.
Don't forget about cocaine
and raw meat.
The Steelers ran on cocaine in the 70s without a fucking doubt. Read about 3 bricks shy of a load. It is about the 1974 Steelers season or 73 Steelers season. I can't remember which, but it's a reporter. It's one of the first embedded reporters with a football team, and this is before the guys were guarded. This is when they would still this is when they still didn't make any money.
Yeah.
They'd still all go out to the bar after the game, the one that the fans went to and hung out, and so he hung out with all these guys.
Jesus.
And they're all it's a different breed. And the Steelers were a bunch of criminals. They all did drugs. They were all a bunch of fucking drunks, and
the original Hard Knocks,
it was
but
a
in
mess.
book form.
Yeah, it's what it was. It's great book. Great book, by the way. It's really from that genre. It's one of the first of that. So, they didn't like him with the Cowboys. So he goes to the Raiders, and he just ends up being on practice squads and preseason type thing, and never makes a roster.
That's more than I've done in the NFL.
That's what I mean. He was in training camp.
Yeah.
He didn't get cut day one. So he says, quote, "In my rookie season in 1978, I was with Tom Landry.
Yeah.
We were in camp, double sessions for 6 weeks straight, no Sundays off. Everything was live contact. Toward the end, I couldn't run. I could run, but I couldn't walk.
Yeah.
So that's 2-a-days.
Yeah.
And
it's too much.
Yeah. So this is what he's coming off of when he decides maybe I'll give wrestling a shot. And he's coming off of that sort of, all out. He's in great shape.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way. I mean, he's coming off 2-a-days in the NFL. You are in great shape. But it's weird too, because wrestling isn't the same kind of shape as other things.
And back then, it was a different shape too.
It was
much more different shape than it is today.
But I mean, you could get a guy who could run 10 miles and be fine,
right.
A world class runner or something. And if you put him in a wrestling ring for 2 minutes, he wouldn't be able to. His tongue would be hanging out. He wouldn't be able to fucking breathe, because it's a completely different muscle memory. You get a guy who is a fat fuck who looks like he couldn't run 30 feet. He can go in there for an hour and run and roll around and be fine. Yeah. So it's a totally different type of thing. Really weird when you see guys like that could, back in the day, that could go an hour with a beer belly, and you're like, how is that a thing?
That's a good point. How?
Yeah.
You'd figure that they would lose that, but after working out all day, they're pouring more beer into that too.
Yeah, and that's what their body is used to. Their body is used to these bursts of this much and this type of activity, and it's a totally different thing. Yeah. So 1979, he hears that wrestlers make decent money, basically. Wrestling is kind of 79 is when it was first starting to really be. It was always popular. Okay. The 50s was the big boom. It was on national television. 60s, it went downhill, but it was still popular. Yeah. And in the 70s, kind of same thing. And then late 70s is when it really started to swell. This is when they had the big Shea Stadium show for 1980 for WWF, and started to get bigger. This is right before the pay-per-view era. Starrcade is in 1983, then WrestleMania in 85. So it's just before that when, big national expansion of certain territories. So he's starting to see this, and he lives in Los Angeles, and they have a wrestling territory there too. Yeah. And he also hears that lots of ex-football players wrestle. That's where he hears it from.
Makes sense.
Football players he knows that are like, man, you can go in wrestling and knock around and fucking make some dough. He wasn't a wrestling fan though. He didn't know anything about it.
Well, that's a problem.
No, I mean, he'd seen it on TV, because every market has their local wrestling back then that was on. So he'd seen it on TV and stuff, but he didn't watch it. He wasn't a big fan. Okay. He didn't look at it and go, man, the psychology of what he wasn't doing that at all. He was just kind of, I know what wrestling is. Yeah. So, he ends up talking to the local promoter there, who was Gene LaBelle, who was one of the territorial promoters from back in the day. They had the Los Angeles area, and they ended up selling out to Vince.
I think you could crush a bunch of money there.
It was a tough territory, actually, L.A. Yeah, L.A. was...
Well, again, it's a saturated market. There's plenty of entertainment.
There's a lot of shit to do in L.A. It's really hard. And apparently it was a real up and down market depending on who was there. Like Piper was there in the 70s, Roddy Piper, and they had a real good upswing. That's how these territories would be. They'd have a couple guys that get real hot, and they'd be hot for a year and a half, and they'd kind of have a lull, and then they'd have another big feud that would get everybody back into it, and they'd kind of have ebbs and flows with these local territories. So he didn't know much about it. So he talks to Gene LaBelle, and basically what they would do in the 70s, the late 70s, mid 70s, and even the early 80s, even to like the mid 80s, I hear this from so many wrestlers. You go to your local promoter and they go, you want to be a wrestler? Great. And if you're, a big athletic guy with a, college background and stuff like that, they'd put you on. I mean, they wouldn't tell you to fuck off if you were that. They might at first, but if you said, no, I really want to do it, they'd be like, all right, well, yeah, you could probably make some money with this guy. So what they do is they'd say, go up to Calgary and train with Stu Hart. Yeah. That was the thing. Now, Stu Hart is Bret Hitman Hart's father and Owen Hart's father, and we'll talk about patriarch of this giant family that Jim becomes a part of. And, it was like the test. Go up to Calgary where it's fucking 4 degrees. Right. Go up to, northern Alberta. Enjoy. Yeah. And, have this fucking crusty old man take you down to a 12-degree basement and fuck you up. They would, this guy, and Jim would talk about this. I heard him in interviews talking about it. And it's just legendary. Stu Hart's Dungeon. Yeah. If you look up that, it's story after story after story of you hear screams from the basement of Stu Hart torturing. Creating wrestlers, torturing potential wrestlers, because he would put them in submission holds and be like, what's that there? Everybody's got a Stu Hart impression. He would talk like that there. He would say, Jim Neidhart said when he first got there, he didn't even know what was going on, and Stu was like, let me have you there, let me have you. And he'd be grabbing his arm, and Jim's like, what do you mean, let me have you? What is that? Like, he would just give him his arm, and then he'd put him in some crazy hold where he'd be fucking screaming, and he's like, Jesus Christ. Because after a few days, he'd go, let me have you there. I'd be like, no one's having me. Fuck that. No, not being had. Me enough. You've had, but it was apparently a 3-sided ring where there was walls on 3 sides of the ring and then an open area where you pretended there was ropes. It was a mat that was 4 inches off the ground, like a boxing ring without a stand, like just on the ground with some wood with a mat over it, and like a pipe that you could hit your head on that was like hanging low. Not a lot. It was in a basement. Not a lot of top rope jumping. No, and this is where a lot of great wrestlers came from. It's crazy to think about, but this guy trained some of the biggest names in the world in this shithole basement of this weird mansion. And the Hart Mansion is like, it's the most legendarily weird place. Yeah. It's like the Haunted Mansion. It's fucking, there's cats everywhere. What? There's people. They have 12 kids, by the way, the Harts. What? We'll talk about that. There's 12 kids. Shitloads of wrestlers are there all the time because they're like living there. New guys are coming in. He's training kids. Yeah. Guys that have worked there are hanging out, eating dinner. Like, there's always 30 people at the house. Cats everywhere. It's apparently completely disgusting hygienically in that house. There's the stories that guys tell, multiple guys have told it, of him where he was making some eggs. Stu Hart was making some eggs on the stove with a spatula, and on the counter there was cat shit. One of the cats had shit on the counter, so he went with the spatula and picked up the cat shit and flicked it off the counter, and then went right back into the eggs with it. They were like, oh my God. That was like, who is eating those? That's Stu Hart. Wrestlers. That's who's eating them. He's making those for wrestlers. Wrestlers who've been tormented in the basement for the last fucking 7 hours. He just used a cat shit spatula. At least he's not having me. He's not. Let me have you there. Let me have you there. I guess Jim Anvil said he would come downstairs in like these little tiny like bikini briefs, like, and nothing else, like this hunched over old man. If you've ever seen Stu Hart, he is a scary look up Stu Hart. And as a young man, he looks like a big tough son of a bitch. As an old man, he looks, I don't even know how to describe him. He looks frightening. Like someone has stolen his soul and his interior light, and he's trying to get it back from you. Well, he's probably just injected all of it into his wife. 12 fucking kids. 12 kids. Jesus. He's given away all his DNA. It's fucking crazy. So, they'd send you up there because basically if you could last through the dungeon and not quit, that meant that you wanted to be in the business. Because it was it was fucking easy to, in other places it wasn't easy, but Stu Hart, like the dungeon's the worst place you could be.
Yeah.
If you would last through the dungeon, they knew you were something, and you were going to last. Not to mention, they had these in Canada. They had these long ass trips in the middle of the winter when it's 20 below zero, literally 20 below zero. They would drive 500 miles, and they would all describe. Stu would drive them all in this fucking van. It was like a 6-person van, and they'd shove 15 wrestlers into it and drive, in the middle of the night, 20, 30 to go, below zero in northern Alberta, hoping the van doesn't break down and they're all going to die out there. But that's what it was, and it was fucking dangerous and the long trip. 500 miles and there and back in the snow and in the fucking, and then the next day, this guy's going to twist you into a pretzel. He's wearing whitey tighties in a scummy basement and feed you cat shit eggs. But for all this, you're making like $20 a night. You're not making any money. You're lucky to be getting the experience is the way they look at it. So if you last through that, that's called paying your dues. Yeah. And then if you last through that, and Stu Hart tells other promoters, hey, this kid's good, and he can go. Right. That's it. You can get a job anywhere in the country. Anyone will hire you. I've had him there. I've had him. So apparently that would get you a job. You could pretty much get a job anywhere you want at that point. So also when he was up there, while he's, being had and driven all the fuck around and stuffed in a van.
That's a thing now.
Yeah. And he talked about, too, they'd play all these tricks on each other and fucking ribs and all this shit. And one particular one that I heard him tell that was pretty funny was they put like 5 packs of X-Lax in somebody's. Oh, no. Some shithead, somebody they didn't like, some wrestler's chocolate malt or something, and then basically he had to shit every 3 seconds. So it was one of those ribs where they're basically fucking themselves because they're all in the car too. So they made a 4-hour trip into an 8-hour trip because this guy's going to shit every 5 minutes. But still, it's worth it because his asshole's sore, I guess. I don't know. He's been had in a different way.
It's the equivalent of putting a Fiber One bar in a Cliff Bar bag.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just ruining your day, not theirs.
Not theirs.
No.
So apparently, Stu Hart liked him a lot because he was a football player. And Stu used to play for Canadian Football League. Stu's an ex-football player. So Stu likes a big, rugged type guy. That's the type of wrestlers he likes too. He likes a big, tough, rugged looking guy because it's fucking Western Canada. It's a rugged, tough area in the 70s. This isn't like there's not a lot of, nobody's mincing around this area. It's a very kind of rugged. They have the Calgary Stampede there. It's a cowboy type of thing. They're tough. So you have to have big, tough guys because the guys in the audience can't be like, well, I can kick that guy's ass. And they might be able to, whereas this guy, they go, Jesus Christ, he's a fucking bull.
That makes sense, too, why he's got vice grip hands if he played in the Canadian Football League.
And he's been a wrestler forever, and he's a weird submission wrestler. Like Stu Hart, there's an old story of Stu Hart where he in his wallet, now he has 12 kids and a wife and all this shit. He had
no condoms in there.
No, definitely no condoms or money for that matter. But neither of those things. But in his wallet, no pictures of any of those people. He has one picture in his wallet.
Who is it?
One picture, and that is of a guy who beat him in a submission match in the 50s.
So he doesn't want to forget what he looks like.
Yeah, and
I see that motherfucker.
That's who he keeps in his wallet for 50 years. While not his kids, not his grandkids, not his wife, none of that shit.
Well, he
this
doesn't
guy,
want to kill them.
Was it Luther Lindsay? I can't. It's a black guy from the 50s who was a good wrestler. I think it's Luther Lindsay. I'm not sure, but he said that son of a bitch beat me in a submission match. There, I keep his picture. He reminds me every day. He's gonna go fucking dig him up and put him in some sort of weird submission hold. What do you think of that, there, Luther? Let me have you.
I'm having you, Luther.
I'm having you. You haven't dead for 12 years, but I'm still gonna have you. I don't know when he died. So at this point, Stu was an older guy, and he wasn't doing he had Bruce was his son. Bruce is kind of the. As the Hart kids go, he's kind of like the assistant to his dad. He was like the booker of this Calgary territory because Stu Hart owns the Calgary wrestling territory. So it's Stampede Championship Wrestling. So he owns, or Stampede Wrestling. He owns Stampede. So Bruce kind of helps him run it, and Bruce would help train a lot of the guys that would come in. And Jim says that Bruce taught him how to take bumps, take the flat bumps and all that type of shit. But
not cocaine bumps.
Not cocaine bumps. He said, yeah, you do it right off the back of your hand. It's a simple way. if you can get a black girl and get her ass in there, you know,
shows up real great.
The 70s Canadian style. You know, good luck finding one up here in Calgary. Let me tell you, they're few and far between. But if you find one, get her to bend over.
She's on rotation. Every cokehead is using her.
You know how it goes. It's terrible. It's a hard business. Being a coke ass, and that's your only business. No sex, no nothing. She's a classy lady. She gave no sex. She says cocaine off my ass and not a fucking. You don't touch another part of me.
With your nose, not your tongue.
Thank you. That's it. So Bret the Hitman Hart, said, quote, my dad was no spring chicken anymore, and I didn't see anyone past Neidhart that he was putting the time into. He completely trained Jim on his own. Jim was my dad's product. Jim was third in the world at shot put in high school, I guess. He was trained to get signed by the Oakland Raiders and was referred to my dad by somebody at the gym, who was Gene LaBelle, according to Jim. He called directory assistants, found my dad, and asked him to teach him to wrestle. I don't know. I would assume the promoter in L.A. would have given him his number at least. I don't think he would have said, go to Calgary. Here's a phone book, kid. Go to Calgary and find him. Like, I would assume he said, here's his phone number.
Look him up.
Yeah. Brett's stories are always a little bit like, they're accurate to the point of like he kept like diaries and notes and shit. So like they're more accurate than most people's, but he also kind of self-aggrandizes a lot in there.
You gotta embellish and make the story good.
Otherwise,
who gives a shit if he came up there?
That's the thing, and he's a creative guy too. Like he's a good artist. He does drawing and shit. Bret Hart. So yeah, I think he's a creative guy. I mean, might be able to spin a yarn. He said, "quote he was a big, strong kid. He had a bench press close to 600 pounds, which that seems like a lot.
That seems excessive.
He was super strong and really quick. He left Calgary after my dad taught him and got signed by the Raiders. He came back to train with my dad after he was injured. Then he was with the Cowboys and got cut. He was the last cut of the year of the Cowboys when they won the Super Bowl in '78. That's what Bret says, but there's timelines there are a little skewed. Jim says he came in '79, not '78. So Bret got his shit. It's just timelines. He got a little twisted there. But,
Bret sounds like the first dude telling the Bible stories, and they're like, no.
Bret's been kicked in the head quite a few times. Let's put it that way. He's had strokes because of it at this point because,
Bret wore pink. It wasn't, like, fashionable.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, obviously, too. December 26th, 1979, Jim marries one of Stu Hart's daughters.
Oh.
And this is a pattern that's going to go on. All these kids are involved in the wrestling business in some way. The boys are wrestlers. The girls are married to wrestlers because that's who's at their house all the time.
Neidhart married a Hart?
Neidhart married a Hart.
That's fascinating.
Which is amazing. That's the whole thing is really kind of a weird serendipitous.
Neid on the beginning of her name.
That's the weird thing. Yeah, it's perfect. This is Elizabeth, who everybody calls Ellie, who he marries. Ellie is one of 12 kids who are Brett, Ellie, Smith, Bruce, Keith, Wayne, Dean, Ross, and Owen, and also Georgia, Allison, and Diana. Those are all the kids. Diana was married to the British Bulldog, Davy Boy Smith, and we'll talk about that because she has a really harsh claim that ties Jim into it in her book later, which is pretty rough stuff. Now, so he worked for Stampede Wrestling from 78, 79 up until 1983. He's always billed from Reno, Nevada for some reason. In the WWF always too, from Reno, Nevada. He's never lived in Reno, Nevada. He's a California guy. He moved to Calgary, and then once he gets going in Calgary, he ends up moving to Florida and living there forever. So
he didn't even drive through Reno on his way to Dallas.
I don't know if he's ever been to Reno at the time that he says he's from Reno. While he's in Stampede, he's a two-time international tag team champ there. Hercules Ayala is one of his partners there. He does well, and Stu pushes him. He likes him, and also he's married to his daughter. So if you want to get a leg up in the promotion, you could marry the promoter's daughter, and that helps. I mean, Jim had talent anyway. It doesn't matter. He was a big, rough and tough guy that had some talent, and so they were going to push him anyway. But the fact that he's married to his daughter is going to make sure that he gets a good paycheck at the end of the week. He's not going to get a $150 paycheck and then say, well, how am I supposed to support your daughter on that? Obviously, I can't get another job because I'm in a fucking van driving 500 miles every night. So
guy's shitting his pants in the back.
Yeah, I got other things to worry about.
You've had me.
All the time. You've had me. Now, in the early 80s here, like 81, he has a daughter named Jennifer. Him and Ellie have a daughter named Jennifer. May 27th, 1982, he has a daughter, Natalie, who is the future and current WWE star, Natalia, she goes by.
Really?
Natalia Neidhart, who is, that's his daughter.
Okay.
And so, she is a tough looking broad, man. Yeah. She's a real stocky, muscular, athletic chick.
Damn near 40.
Yeah, she's getting up there too, because it took her a while to catch on. Sure. She like went and trained in Japan and shit. Like she's.
Why the hell would she do that? She had a dude to have her right there.
Yeah, you could have had me there. I guess Japan is like a lot of the guys train in Japan. It's the hardest training in Japan. They beat the living shit out of
Harder
you.
Than a
ring.
three-sided ring.
Oh, by far. Yeah,
really?
it's even worse. Yeah,
okay.
it's awful. Oh, by the way, when he was up there, he said he lived in like some little shack on the property for a while. It was like what he called like the servants' quarters.
And Ellie would come visit him there?
Yeah, he lived on this shack. He said it was fucking disgusting. It was gross. He said Stu Hart would come in, knocking on the door in the morning and just bumming beers off him and shit. And what is going on? Where am I? Has her. He works some New Japan wrestling in there too. He goes, Stampede, Stu Hart in Japan always had a relationship sending wrestlers back and forth.
Okay.
It's kind of where the Dynamite Kid came from and all that.
Makes sense why he sent his daughter there.
Yeah. Well, later on, she wanted to go there because it's just known as if you want to train the right way, if you really want to do it, you can go to Japan and get your ass kicked. And it's considered, you have, it's like street cred in the business type of thing. It's like
training with the Gracies.
Exactly. It's that sort of
Teddy
deal.
Atlas or
There's some shit like that. Yeah, it's exactly the same type of thing. So Bruce Hart says at this point, like I said, he's one of the Hart sons who's kind of helping run the promotion up there. He said, we began phasing out the older, slower, prodding veteran types, and Jim fit right into that group of young performers. He was always a team player. Jim presented a lot of enthusiasm behind the scenes, not only when he was in Calgary, but later on when he was in WWE. He was always one of the guys in the dressing room that was pumping everyone up. On the road, he was always a breath of fresh air. Okay. He's a fucking fun, crazy guy. He's a real boisterous guy, and if you ever seen his interviews, he would do this laugh at the end of them where he'd go, this like cackle laugh, and like he's a real boisterous, kind of upbeat, crazy guy. So everyone says they like him. He's not a guy that anyone says is an asshole, or all of his problems are self-destructive, and he's a fun guy to be around.
My kind of guy.
Whatever, your kind of guy for now. Yeah. For now, and he'll remain your type of guy, your kind of guy, I think. I don't think he's ever going to not be.
Okay.
83, he goes on quickly with Calgary, too, because it means something for later. He said they were getting rid of the old guys there. Their style became like a much faster style than everywhere else. The Calgary style was like a upbeat, fast, lot of motion, lot of movement.
Showy.
Showy, but hard-hitting, too. Yeah. Hard-hitting, tough, and fast. Don't go out there and sit in a chin lock for 20 minutes. Right. You go out there and
make it fun to
around.
watch.
Yeah.
Sell the popcorn, motherfucker.
Exactly. And if you saw in the mid-'80s when the British Bulldogs and Hart Foundation would go at each other there, they let each other have each other there. They would have these crazy, great matches that were just up and down and back and forth, and it was that style.
It's the creepiest fucking thing ever.
Let me have you there. In a dank, dark, cold Canadian basement. Some hunched over old man, like I said, who looks like he's lost his soul and now wants yours to replace it, is going, let me have you there.
In a room where caribou have been taken apart for years.
Years. So, fuck, man. So, 83, he goes and works for Georgia Championship Wrestling, which is in, obviously, Georgia. This is for Ole Anderson as the booker, and Jim Barnett, who's a crazy flamboyant promoter we've talked about a lot, who's
100 times.
super gay and funny and hilarious and interesting, just a character and a half. Now, Stu Hart, when he was in Calgary, they were looking for a name for him. He's just Jim Neidhart. Yeah. That's what they're calling him, Jim Neidhart, which is
good.
it's not flashy. Right. They tried calling him the Animal for a little while, and he didn't really like that. And so Stu, to promote him, Stu basically he forces him to enter the Anvil toss competition at the Calgary Stampede.
Yeah.
And he said, if you enter the contest and win, I'll give you $500.
Oh.
So Jim was like, well, fuck it, let's do it.
Throw heavy shit all the time.
Fuck it. So he does. It's 100-pound anvil.
God, Jesus.
To try to toss it. And Jim said, like, you could toss it any way you want. Yeah. Some guys did it like on their shoulder, and some guys would kind of scoop under it and try to get it from the bottom. And some guys would,
like the best way.
Some guys would try to do it, get it as high in the air to try to have so there's like less loft to go down. So he said he scooped under it and kind of tossed it that way.
That seems the best way.
Yeah, it seems the smartest way. And he threw it 11 feet 2 inches, 100-pound Anvil, which is pretty fucking impressive.
I don't think I could throw a 40-pound bag of dog food that far.
No, 11 feet 2 inches.
That's far.
He said it hurt. He's like, that shit was hard. He goes, that was fucking hard. That was the hardest thing.
So much he wanted, $500.
Yeah, well,
did he win?
He won.
All
the promoter, was telling him to. It's his father-in-law and his boss. He's going to go into that contest, throw that Anvil there. You have no choice at that. Let me have you. He's going to have you if you don't. So at that point, this is, I guess, Helen Hart, the matriarch of the family there, Stu's wife, decided he should be called the Anvil at that point.
Hell yeah.
It fucking stuck forever. So anyway, Georgia Championship Wrestling, he teamed up with King Kong Bundy for a while. Yeah. And I believe this is King Kong Bundy with hair.
Really?
If I'm not sure.
God rest his soul.
This is pre-shaven headed King Kong Bundy, if I'm not mistaken. And
body's still warm at this point.
Yeah, King Kong is well, it's going to take a while for that thing to
cool off.
Yeah, it's a lot of heat stored up in there for King Kong. By the way, John Oliver on his show did a wrestling segment, and he talked about King Kong Bundy, and he was bringing up guys, and he did a good job, John Oliver, by the way. I'm not talking shit about it at all. I thought he did a really fine job in a 25-minute clip. No, and he got a lot of information in, and really, put home the need for health care and the need for these guys to be fucking employees and not independent contractors when they're
in 2019.
Okay,
they're not college athletes at this point.
Crazy. Right. It's they give you a schedule. This is your schedule. Can I work for that company on my day off? Of course not. You work for us, but you can't. You're not an employee.
You don't work for us.
Fuck is that?
You work for us.
But you work for us. Yeah. Jesus, it's insane. So anyway, he did a good job. He talked about Bundy and talked about a couple guys that died recently and was talking about how wrestlers die early, but like the ones who die early for like King Kong Bundy died early. He's a 400+ pound guy. Right. He's going to die. He's not going to live to be 85 years old. 6'5" guys that weigh 430 pounds don't live to be in their 80s. They just don't. 60 whatever is a pretty good run for him, I would think.
But the Ultimate Warrior should have had a little more longevity.
Should have had a little more longevity. Exactly. That's the guys like that should have been brought up more. He did bring up Eddie Guerrero, who's kind of the poster child for the need for a real oversight on the drugs and everything.
Follow up after they're gone.
Well, shit, while he was still there.
Yeah.
Because he died when he was still employed with them. Yeah, he was still employed with them. He was on the road, died in a hotel room.
Lord.
Like a lot of them do, sadly. It's Jesus, never let me die in a fucking hotel room.
There's another crossover with comedy.
I swear to God. That's what I mean. It's the same thing. Comedian, no one dies in hotel rooms more than comedians and wrestlers.
And another independent contractor thing where...
And it's another independent.
I'm at this club. Well, if you work those clubs, you can't work our clubs.
That's what I mean. Oh, but I don't work for you. Right. Okay, but you're not going to guarantee me anything or any amount of... At least these guys would have like a certain guaranteed amount of dates or something where, we didn't even have that as
give
comics.
Us your avails.
Yeah, we'll give us your avails, and we'll see when we can use you, and then maybe you'll make a living next month, and maybe you won't.
Maybe you won't.
Maybe you fucking won't. And
maybe
that's
your
comedy.
Car gets repoed.
We'll see. Hey, let's roll the dice on rent for next month. What do you say, guy?
See if you're riding the bus to your next gig.
I'm telling you,
let's
bro.
Have
That's exactly what it fucking is. You have no job security. It's the same exact thing. And they wonder why comics and wrestlers were shitty to the people who were, they were leery of promoters and they'll do anything to try to get an extra buck and to fuck you over. It's like, well, yeah, that's all you have. Yeah. You're getting fucked in left, right, and center, and you have no security, so you're going to get yours any way you can.
And addiction problems.
Because you're done at night.
And you have no fucking idea what your next gig is, and maybe you're a little depressed.
And it's 11 o'clock at night. Everyone's going home to go to bed, and you're all jacked up at the top peak of your jackness, and you're like, what are we all doing? You're not going to go home and go to bed at that point, and that's why you end up with...
Who's got pills?
Who's got pills? Who's got this? He worked for Mid-South Wrestling in 83, 84, and Mid-South is Bill Watts. We've talked about him a lot, too. That is the Oklahoma, Louisiana kind of territory in there. His territory, which was a crazy one. He said this is where he learned to do interviews and stuff like that on TV, and this is where he grew his goatee.
Yeah.
He had a tag team partner, and they decided, let's grow goatees so we look, like each other, and we look different than everyone else. Yeah, you know how that goes. So he just grew these long goatees, and he said his just came in real cool.
I know how it goes.
It comes in stiff and long and pointy.
Well, mine's wavy, but I can grow it long. It grows long fast.
No, his is impressive as a goatee.
Like a unicorn on his chin.
That's what he looks like. Yeah, so he ends up keeping it, and that becomes his signature look forever. And flat top hairdo, goatee, and sunglasses. Like he's a silhouette that you can see.
You can pick him out and you can pick out his shadow.
Absolutely, yeah. He also ends up in in different iterations of the NWA around this time. Wins some titles here and there, but the big thing is Stampede is sold to Vince McMahon. Okay. Stu Hart sells his company to Vince McMahon. This is when Vince McMahon's going around either buying you or fucking crushing you, one or the two. And Stu actually goes with the program and says, I'll sell it to you, and has a great relationship with him forever because of that. So he sells him Stampede, and this is supposed to be for, I can't remember the amount, but it's supposed to be a certain amount of payments he's supposed to get every year, yearly payments. And part of the deal is give my kid and my son-in-law as a look. Okay. Also, take him with you to WWF and give him a chance and see if you want him. And that's Bret Hart.
How humiliating. So we put the zebra and pink on him?
This is, we'll talk about that. But they sent Bret Hart. Owen was still young at that point. He wasn't really in it yet. They send Bret. They send Jim the Anvil, who is Stu's son-in-law, Davey Boy, who is Stu's other son-in-law, and then Dynamite Kid, who is another English wrestler, who is Davey Boy's tag team partner to make up the British Bulldogs. So they all go over there in 85. January of 85 is when Jim ends up in the WWF. At this point, his debut is on January 21st, 85 in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
So he's gone from the mat in the basement to fucking MSG in 85. Incredible. And January 21st, 85, this is 3 months before the first WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. This is hot as it gets, sold out every fucking show.
Look at the timing.
Crazy crowds. Oh, he came in they came in right at the cusp. I mean, literally 3 months before WrestleMania. Yeah. So it's just about to fucking explode. Yeah. And it has exploded, but it's about to go to a different level of national.
Very much like comedy.
Very much like comedy. No, they mirror each other so much. Yeah. Also, at this point, Bret Hart's in there, and they're trying to figure out what to do with Bret Hart, who's just like this nondescript, and he's not a real boisterous guy. He's just kind of a plain. He's very Canadian. Yeah. He's just kind of a stoic Canadian guy with long black hair.
Who goes with the program?
What do you do with him? So they were going to make him a cowboy. They're going to make him Cowboy Bret Hart, literally, and they're going to give him a hat and chaps and everything else.
Fuck.
And Bret was like, I don't want to fucking be Cowboy Bret. That's death. You know that's death. Yeah. There's like 8 other cowboys running around. None of them matter in wrestling. No one cares about cowboys in wrestling. So he's, not since Cowboy fucking Bill Watts in the 60s and 70s. Like, no one cares anymore about cowboys in the 80s. So instead, as a last-ditch effort to not be a cowboy, Bret says, you want to be a team with me? To Jim, and then goes to Vince and says, what if we're a team? Yeah. And they actually were like, man, we could try that out, because really they had no ideas. So they were like, fuck it, that's better than just you being a cowboy and whatever. So we don't really care about either of you. Let's see if together it's something. Okay. So they team him up with, at first Jim was managed by Mr. Fuji, who's a terrible Japanese stereotype.
So bad.
Oh, God, he threw salt in the eyes and everything. I mean, he's the worst of them all. Had the tuxedo with the white gloves and throwing salt at you, and a cane and a top hat, and he waddled. And he go, oh. I saw an interview where he actually said, so. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? He
is an Austin Powers character.
He is. No, that's exactly what he is. He's before Austin Powers was mocking that. Right. He was. So when they hook him up with Bret Hart, they give... so I was like, did he just say that? He's Hawaiian. He's not... like Fuji's Hawaiian.
I'm trying my best to suspend disbelief. Stop pissing in my face.
Stop doing that. Jesus Christ. How can you be racist against yourself? But you are somehow. You are. 80s wrestling could make whatever you are, you're racist against yourself. You can't help it. You just are. Every black guy was like, head shakingly like stereotypical. Every Japanese guy was doing an aso and throwing salt and doing Pearl Harbor jobs behind. They were always sneaky. We talked about this. Wrestling back then was the most racist thing in the world. Hard heads. You had anybody from an island or black people, you couldn't hurt their heads. Literally, they just hit him into the turnbuckle and they go, you got to know better. You're not going to hurt him in the head. And it's like, why? Because he's black? Literally, every black guy. S.T. Jones, fucking Junkyard Dog, every black guy in the 80s. And the island guys, too. They had hard heads. Japanese are sneaky.
It couldn't have been worse if Mr. Fuji in an interview before the wrestlers come in, he smiles and looks over his shoulder and goes, he, me, play joke, and then sets down a Coke.
It was the same thing. That's pretty much what it was. That's pretty much what everything was. Every Latin guy and every Italian guy was fiery tempered. You know, it was just as fucking stereotypical as it gets.
Unbelievable.
So, I mean, then you got Hulk Hogan who looks like a balding He-Man, basically. So that was that.
He was just a stereotypical, like, 80s biker dude.
Yeah.
With, like, the weird, like, the chopped up clothes and the headband.
The tank top and the headband. Well, he's in a band. So he's like, you know, Florida.
He's a rocker,
Florida rock guy who rides his motorcycle to the gig is what he was.
That didn't get his garage band picked up.
With his bass strapped to his back. And
he's not giving up the goddamn dream.
Yeah.
Even though he's bald.
No, he's still going to keep it and just get it longer in the back. So the new team, they give them Jimmy Hart to manage them, H-A-R-T, just like Bret Hart is H-A-R-T, and Jim Neidhart is Neid, H-A-R-T.
Right.
So no relation to any of these people, but it's pretty fucking amazing, and you kind of have to put them together at that point. Yeah. You really do. And Jimmy Hart explains how the name came about, which seems pretty obvious. Yeah. He says, quote, "We were in Miami Beach going to the ring. I looked behind me, and this kid had a Jimmy Hart's Heart Foundation, and he spelled it H-A-R-T, Foundation. So I saw it and went, oh my God. He went to and then Jimmy said he went to the merchandising department at WWF and they liked it. And basically, they said you couldn't use it. WWF said that the H-E-A-R-T, like a heart, regular spelling, Heart Foundation is copyrighted, but not H-A-R-T. So that's which is what they are. And Jimmy was like, yeah, we're H-A-R-T, make it that. And then that's how their Heart Foundation.
It's brilliant, but it's kind of shitty. It's a pun.
It makes sense, though.
It makes sense.
It really does.
It's brilliant.
And as a kid, I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, these people must all live in a house together. Like, I pictured, like, as I was like 7, I'm picturing, like, the Heart Foundation must live in, like, this weird Heart Foundation house. You know?
And the Heart Foundation is like, what the fuck?
They were like the monkeys to me. Like, they just all ran around and
driving a wacky car.
Yeah. So they were at their first pay-per-view. First WrestleMania is WrestleMania 2 in '86, and they had the 20-man battle royal that had all the football players in it, which had William Perry in it, the Fridge, and all these old football players in it. And at the very end of it, the last 3 guys are Andre the Giant and the Heart Foundation, Jim and Bret.
Yeah.
So what they do is they have Andre toss Jim out of the ring, whatever, and so Jim is standing down below on the floor. If you know, a ring is up high. And the plan was Andre picks Bret up over his head and throws him down onto the floor on top of Jim.
Right.
Okay, which sounds
pretty easy,
right? But then Jim explaining it says, you don't realize how tall Andre is. And the ring apron is already fucking 3.5 feet high. And then Andre's 7 feet tall and his arms are another 4 feet.
You're throwing a man 10 feet.
More than that. It's like 15 feet in the air. And he said, and Bret Hart's 240 pounds.
Oh, Jesus.
He goes, and as he's up there, I'm looking up, and he said, I see Bret's eyes are as big as saucers, like, holy shit, this is frightening. And he says, as he's up there, he goes, I mouthed to Bret, you're too high. He's like, it's happening anyway. Like, there's no fucking way. But he's just thinking, he goes, no, you're too high. Don't come. You're too high. You're too heavy and you're too high.
Tap out.
Yeah, he was explaining. He's like, you can't do this. You can't put, that's the plan. And it's you're on live on pay-per-view and it's WrestleMania. So
Jesus.
Said he fucking threw him down on him. He said, just crashed. And he's like, I was just going to try to break his fall. He goes, he's like, are we alive afterwards? What the fuck are we doing? Why did we do that?
Break his fall. I broke my ass.
It was a funny ass. Just him going, no, you're too high. You're too high. Just being all paranoid. Oh, no, he's too high.
And you're 8 buying it. You're like, oh, look at the fear in his eyes.
Yeah.
It's like he's really scared.
Yeah, no shit. So the Pink. At this point, they were wearing black.
Right.
They were wearing all black. They had like a blue stripe, a maroon stripe sometimes, and sometimes they had blue pants.
Okay.
At one point, Brett explains it how the seamstress, the lady who makes all the costumes for the WWF at the time, basically kept trying to push this fuchsia color on everybody.
She's got a ton of it.
It's like a new color, and she was excited about it. She's trying to get everybody to wear it, and everyone's like, we're not wearing fucking pink. We're not wearing pink.
Yeah.
And apparently, finally, Brett said, you know what, fuck it. Throw us in the fucking pink and let's see what it looks like. Because they just needed something, a gimmick of something different. So he says, this is what he says, Brett says, quote, Vince McMahon stared, mouth agape, and circled us around. We thought, looks like Vince doesn't like our new gear. Fearing the worst, we were shocked when he enthusiastically said, that is what you guys have been missing all along. You had no color. That is your color. From now on, don't wear anything else. The pink and black attack. And that was that. Fucking pink from now on.
Unbelievable. And they look like referees in the NFL in October.
They look like referees in the lingerie bowl. That's what they fucking look like. But they popped. Yeah. They look different from everyone else.
I remember it.
And that group, if you look at them, they really, like, Brett and Jim look completely different.
Yeah.
Brett is like long hair, like the girls dug Brett and shit like that. Brett looked like he'd be a dick, and then if you wanted to fight him, Jim would pop out from behind him and tear your fucking head off and be like, you want to fight? I'll fight you, motherfucker, and then beat the shit out of you, and Brett would laugh at you, and then Jimmy Hart would cackle at you through a bullhorn while you're on the floor unconscious. Like, that was the dynamic of the group from the outside. And Jimmy Hart says that too. He says, what a great run we had. I couldn't believe how it took off. But the reason why was Neidhart was such a great character back then. Brett was more cool. The girls loved him. Neidhart and myself were kind of like the evil twins. So they were always like laughing and giggling and being like crazy.
Having a great time.
Having a great fucking time. So he's getting very popular. And this is when the Hart Foundation was getting big. January 1987, on a flight on U.S. Air.
Oh, boy.
From never a good start. Yeah. From Tampa to Pittsburgh, which is like going from Tampa to Pittsburgh. It's fucking terrible. I don't even know how else to put it.
From Tampa to frozen Tampa.
I was literally going to say, what, fucking Fort Lauderdale to Cleveland? It's the same thing. Tampa to Pittsburgh. Yeah. That's the best way to explain it.
Somebody turned the AC down. That's it.
It's just, that's all. That's all it is. There's a flight attendant named Ava Winston, and she claims that apparently Jim ordered beers and then said that he had coupons for free beers from the airline, which they used to have back then. They used to give those out all the time, especially to frequent flyers, which he was.
They still do it.
But he couldn't find this beer coupons. So she claims that he got belligerent with her and she refused to serve him 2 beers. She claims he got belligerent and claims that he poked at her and then with a clenched fist punched her 4 or 5 times in the arm. Hard, she says. This is her claim. Stood up in the aisle of the fucking plane, a big giant flat top giant goateed monster.
Drilled the stewardess.
You would notice in a plane and fucking started drilling the stewardess with closed fists, okay? That's her claim. They call the FBI and U.S. Marshals. The pilot does from the plane. The stewardess asks for that. When they land in Pittsburgh, there are FBI agents waiting to take Jim off the plane, which is never good. He apparently wasn't real thrilled about that either. So there was some scuffling when he gets off the plane. So he ends up being arrested for this. He misses a match the next day in Ohio, but then wrestles the next night in Pittsburgh and is freed on a $10,000 unsecured bond. He's charged with felony assault and disrupting a flight service and all this shit. He faces up to 20 years in prison.
Oh my God. And rightfully so.
And a $10,000 fine. Yeah. Don't beat up a flight attendant, please, at all.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. That's terrifying. You're in a tube.
Right.
Don't fuck around in that tube.
Everybody's doing 600 miles an hour.
Everybody sit down, shut the fuck up. If you don't have to piss, just shut up and sit down. And if you do have to piss, if it's not that bad, wait till you get to the fucking airport. If we all just pissed willy-nilly, the fucking plane would stink of piss the whole way everywhere it went.
And you're adding weight, goddammit.
That's the other thing.
Stop it.
Well, I'm sure they just spray it out.
How do you have to shit on how do you not plan your day?
I don't know. You have to, unless you're ill, unless you have a serious illness at that point.
If you got that illness, stay the fuck home.
I was going to say,
plane.
maybe fucking take a later flight when your insides fucking, when they clam up a bit, when
they can seal shut for a few hours,
when things become solid in there. So this goes to trial here in April of 1987, and Jim is on trial for this is hardcore, man. At the time here, his lawyer, who is the WWE's lawyer, and this guy is like silver-haired middle-aged white man, 1A fucking top of the heap here.
The guy.
Jerry McDevitt, who is known as the guy who, anytime the WWE wants to sue somebody and they're super litigious and shit, you get a letter from this asshole saying some ridiculous shit. Whatever,
making a claim that he can't prove in court, but it sounds threatening,
and it's very threatening. And McDevitt says he wasn't accustomed to defending characters like this. He said he did like mainly business shit, like actually in court. He said, quote, most of my clients wore gray suits, gray underwear, gray everything. Neidhart comes in. He's got these wraparound shades, ZZ top beard, closely cropped hair. He was one of the scariest looking people I've ever seen in my life. I remember thinking when I saw him that if a guy like him did what they say he did, everybody in that plane would have seen him because he draws eyes, which is the first thing I thought too. Imagine the spectacle of that man fucking punching a stewardess.
Unless there's a shitload of him on that plane.
Yeah. It's just, he's gonna fucking stand out. So at the trial, the Ava Winston testifies for the prosecution. She testified that she had 2 different confrontations with him, and then she was so afraid that she couldn't complete her duties for the rest of the flight. Another flight attendant actually testified also on her behalf that this happened. Problem is, the defense had 18 witnesses that said that shit didn't happen at all, including another flight attendant and basically everybody from the section around him on the plane.
Unbelievable.
They all said none of that shit happened at all. If anything, he tapped her on the arm with his finger to get her attention, and that's all anybody saw. He never got up.
It probably felt like a punch.
Yeah, he never got up, and he definitely never hit her with a closed fist, is what all these people said. Now, the verdict here, the jury deliberates for this is a U.S. District Court. Jury deliberates for 90 minutes, and they acquit Jim Neidhart.
Wow.
Very rare acquittal for crime in sports. That's what Vince McMahon does for you.
You bet.
This was the time 3 years ago he got Jimmie Hart off of fucking killing a broad just by going, dummy up and act like you don't speak English. And the guy fucking wrestled for another 30 years. So literally, you know what I mean?
You mean Snuka.
What did I say?
Jimmie Hart.
Jimmie Hart.
Yeah.
Jimmie Hart. Jimmy Snuka. Jimmie Hart never killed anybody.
No.
He was in the
To our
Gentries
knowledge.
and sang "Keep on Dancing." I don't think he killed anybody, but he was actually.
Yeah. But I mean, we know that for sure.
Yeah.
But to our knowledge, never killed anybody.
Never killed anybody. Not sure. He could be a prolific serial killer. We have no idea. There could be
Snuka, we're pretty sure of it.
There could be bodies all littered up and down the Florida interstates for all we know with Jimmie Hart, but we don't know that for sure. But Snuka, this is the time when Vince was all powerful and crushing things, and that is Vince's lawyer that represented him. So
no speaker.
No speaky. Yeah, Jim Neidhart said he didn't speak English, is what he said. He's a redhead from California. He said, I don't speak English. And they bought it.
He said it in perfect English.
He said, excuse me, sir, I don't speak English at all. I'm not going to participate in this trial. That's the English I've learned.
I'm incapable.
So it's the charges of assault and interfering with a flight attendant. He is acquitted. Later on that day, he files a lawsuit suing the U.S. Air, suing the accuser and the woman who testified against him for defamation.
Oh my!
Lawsuits abound. It's against him, against Stephanie Ziegler, who's another flight attendant that he claims lied when she says she witnessed the punch. He says that the story, Neidhart said U.S. Air supported the attendant's story, even though it was fabricated, so he's suing them also. They claim that the Winston intentionally, maliciously, and with premeditation made false and defamatory statements to various U.S. Air officials, airport personnel, and law enforcement officers to the effect that Neidhart had assaulted and intimidated her.
My word.
So he is suing the shit out of her. Like I said, she gave her version to the FBI and all that.
He's going to win.
Now, listen to this. This is hilarious, the way they put this lawsuit. Neidhart said the accusations led to him, quote, this is fucking awesome. keep in mind what he does.
Yeah.
Keep in mind he flies around the country, pretends to be a psychopath.
Right.
And this wasn't back in the day when it was like, oh, this is Jim Neidhart who plays the character of Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
Right.
This was like, people thought this was the real guy, and is a psychopath that beats the shit out of people.
Right.
He says he's being held up to scorn, ridicule, and contempt among his professional acquaintances. What they're going, what are you, knocking out flight attendants, Jim? They're not, quote, neighbors and others in the community. As a result, this is awesome. Neidhart's business reputation,
unsullied.
Psychopath is a good business reputation for a wrestler. Health and state of mind have suffered, the suit said. So he's claiming like emotional damages about this. He's a very sensitive man.
Well, there's no physical, obviously, he's got to go with emotional.
They argued that no one could have missed him, obviously, doing this if it happened, that everybody exaggerated, the flight attendants exaggerated everything. So Vince McMahon, by the way, loaned him the money to sue the airline.
Yeah, of course.
You know who he hired?
Who?
Rick Santorum.
Really?
Yeah, ex-Senator Rick Santorum, fucking crazy religious lunatic, right-wing.
Isn't Santorum like a name of something that you secrete? Yes.
They made there was a big thing about that where if you
a gay sex secretion.
If you Googled Santa, because he's so anti-gay. Yeah. He's like vehemently anti-gay.
So it was because of him?
It was because of him. Because he was so anti-gay, they made a campaign to make his last name
be butthole juice.
Be a gay sex term, and that was for years the highest. If you search Santorum, that's what came up above him. So that was on purpose to fuck with him, which I think is hilarious. I don't care what your political affiliations are. That's hilarious. That is objectively funny.
May I never make internet trolls angry.
That is fucking amazing. Not clever ones like that. That's fucking good shit. That's clever.
Incredible. Because it sounds like what gay butt juice would be called.
It's perfect. It really works. So this is a guy who was a senator in Pennsylvania and ended up running for president a couple times, very unsuccessfully. He ends up, though, getting a settlement out of this. Wow. Jim wins the case and gets a $380,000 settlement out of this.
Jesus Lord.
So out of all this, he ends up getting $380,000. Oh. That's a little bit later, and we'll talk about how he, when Vince wanted his money back for that lawyer, by the way, we'll talk about that. Bret Hart, in his book, said that at this point, most of the money that he had, the $380,000, was blown on cocaine, a Kawasaki Ninja motorcycle, and then the remains of the cash settlement he kept in his fanny pack on his body at all times.
While he wrestled.
I'm sure he was out there in his fanny pack. He had it in his fanny pack, riding around on his motorcycle with like $100,000 in his fucking fanny pack.
How much cocaine did he do?
A shitload.
Really?
We'll talk about it. Okay. Jim liked his cocaine, and then later on, he loved his crack, boy. He was into crack and then pills, and buddy.
Jesus.
Now, Vince took the money out of his lawyer, out of his checks in the future. This was later on in like 91. We'll talk about when this money came out. Neidhart saw his checks and said, where the fuck is my money? And they said, you're paying me back for the lawyer now. Neidhart freaked the fuck out.
Of course.
And went looking for Chief Jay Strongbow, who's a backstage agent there. Found him and then took a TV monitor and threw it at Chief Jay Strongbow, shot putter style.
Oh, boy.
And I guess Strongbow got out of the way, but it hit one of the TV directors in the leg. I think it broke his leg.
Of course.
It fucking hurt him bad. So Neidhart just left the arena, got in his car, and drove away. He's just like, fuck this. He left. This led to a brief firing.
Yeah.
Neidhart gets fired from the WWE approximately 77 times. It's ridiculous. He's fired constantly.
That's how good of a wrestler he is, though. Well, after throwing a TV.
Not only that, first of all, he's kind of popular, but by the early 90s, they could have left or took or left him at that point. But he is Bret's brother.
Yeah.
And he's part of that clan. And Stu has a certain thing with Vince where Vince will do Stu favors. It's a weird thing. And Bret, at that point, when this is all going on, Bret is becoming like Intercontinental champ, and then he's going to be champ. He's becoming a mainstay. Yeah. And every time he'd be fired, he'd be gone for a little while. And they said Stu would call Vince up and go, hey, you got anything for the big guy there? He needs some work there. I talked to him. He's going to be better this time. And
my grandkids are hungry.
It's basically like, you can hire my son-in-law. I need you to do this for me. And they would fucking bring him back in, and then he'd be there for a while, and he'd fuck up, and they'd fire him, and then Stu would go, hey, the Bull's ready to come back there. So that's who it went. That's how it went. So anyway, back to wrestling in 87. This is right around the January was the incident on the plane. February 7th, it was taped January 26th, so it's taped like 10 days after the incident. They win the tag team championships from the British Bulldogs there, which is, they had good matches with them all along. Dynamite Kid was hurt here. His back was fucked up, so they basically had him go out there. This is what I mean with wrestling. Dynamite Kid couldn't fucking walk. His back, he's in a wheelchair to this, now and everything, but he couldn't even fucking walk because his back was so fucked up. He hurt it really bad. He had like blown out discs. So they said, just go out there, get knocked off the ring, and pretend you're fucking hurt. So they made him go out there, take one bump, and then fucking lay out for the rest of the match. And they had, so it basically became a handicap match with Davey getting the shit beat out of him by the Hearts. And they had Danny Davis was the referee, who they ran a big angle where he was a crooked referee at the time, who was, he didn't Macho Man won the Intercontinental title using a foreign object when he was the ref, and they basically made him, he would cheat the good guys all the time.
The guy with his back turned.
Yeah, he would cheat the good guys and, everything. And after this, he ends up being suspended by the WWF and becomes a wrestler, becomes a part of the Hart Foundation. Jesus. And they give him this terrible striped outfit that was the worst thing ever.
Much.
So anyway, they're tag team champs. And this is like when I was a kid, I was super into wrestling right at this very moment. And like in my head, the Hart Foundation were always the champs because that's when I was into it. And Grace. This is Grace right here. This is definitely Grace.
Okay.
So they hold the titles all the way to November. Yeah. It's a pretty good run there, about 10 months. They lose them to Strike Force, which is Rick Martel and Tito Santana, which was a pretty lame tag team, if I'm being honest here. Now, his daughter, Natty, the Natalia in WWE, she says, quote, I loved reminiscing with my dad about his matches with the Bulldogs and his partnership with my Uncle Brett as the Hart Foundation. He always said that wrestling the Bulldogs felt like a night off. My dad loves Uncle Brett, Owen, and Davey, and Grandfather Stu. When you travel the world with someone sharing the same passion like they did, you build an unbreakable bond. And they're traveling constantly.
Yeah.
This is the most traveling of any thing ever.
It's the most violent circus on earth.
And this 87 WWF was the peak of the pressure cooker. Yeah. They had 3 shows running a night.
Fuck.
They had an A show, a B show, a C show, running in a big arena, a smaller arena, and then a high school gym with 2,000 people. They had 3 shows every night. Jim went through a period of this, it's legendary, where he worked 91 straight days. On the road, did not go home for 91 days.
That's too much.
That's 3 solid months of every single day. You wake up, go to the airport, get in a plane, get off, get a hotel, go wrestle, get out, find something to eat, go to sleep, get up, get on a plane. 91 straight days.
We did that for 4 days.
And I wanted to kill everyone I saw. Everyone besides you. Yeah. We get along fine on the road.
Do great.
We know each other's rhythms so well that it's fine. So that's, I feel like how they were. Jim said that in all the years they traveled and all, because him and Brett are tied together through all this, they never once got in a fight on the road.
How
ever.
About that?
No disagreements. They just were trying to get through it together.
I think that's what it is, because you get to a point where you're just like, I'm irritable. I don't want to do this flight, but the one thing that I do have is that you're doing it too.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and that's what it was. Well, at least we're in it together. Fuck it. We both have to do it.
We both hate this, so we may as well commiserate.
Exactly. Fucking exactly. So at this point here, the Hart Foundation, they're still a good team. They try to make them good guys at one point, and they're bad guys, and Jimmy Hart turns on them, and then they're good guys. Which is kind of lame. The Hart Foundation ends up winning the titles back from Demolition at SummerSlam in '88 here. So they end up doing that. They continue. They feud with all of Jimmy Hart's people basically, and that sort of thing. WrestleMania 5. They are with Jim Duggan in a 6-man hacksaw. Jim Duggan defeating the Rougeaus and Dino Bravo. So, that's...
I really loved when they introduced makeup into this, because that really set them... Because a lot of these guys just look so goddamn similar, even with the outfit being a little different.
Yeah, they painted their faces up.
Right.
Give them some...
you got, like, Sting and Goldust and all the weird
Ultimate Warrior.
Shit. Ultimate Warrior. The real fun, like, psychotic...
Road Warriors.
Right.
And
came in with a fucking mask.
Yeah, the Powers of Pain back then had that shit. Warlord and Barbarian.
I love that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Well, at this point, Brett starts kind of breaking away as a single a little bit here. Mm-hmm. In WrestleMania 4, they do a thing. They have a battle royal in the beginning of it, and they have a thing with him and Bad News Brown. Both win. They decide to split it, and then Bad News Brown turns on him and kind of makes Brett a little bit of a good guy.
Oh,
the fans wanted to cheer them, the Hart Foundation. Mm-hmm. They did. Like, when they turned good guy, the fans went nuts because they were like, fuck yeah, we've been liking these guys, sort of, and we wanted to cheer them, but we hate Jimmy Hart and his fucking megaphone. So, WrestleMania 6 in Toronto, they beat the Bolsheviks, which were the shitty Russian team. And think about this. It's like 1990. A Russian team was as played as it gets.
Yeah.
Like, nobody cared anymore. It was very, very sad.
Cold War's over.
It's fucking done here. At SummerSlam 90, they win the tag team title again, at that point. So, they have a weird thing here with Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, the Rockers. They go to lose the titles to them, but the top rope broke.
Oh, shit.
During the match, and they never fixed it, so they decided they couldn't air it, and then the Rockers had to give the belts back to the Hart Foundation because they were like, we're just not going to do it now. How fucked is that?
That's terrible.
We're going to be champs and make more money, and this is going to be great. Oh, no, the rope broke, so you're not getting anything now. Back to where you were.
Just the chance and luck of that. Anyway, that's an elevator rope. That's not fucking rubber bands.
No, it's like the turnbuckle thing broke.
Okay.
Like
in the corner?
Yeah, something broke, or the rope. I don't remember what it was. The WWF, they actually used ropes.
Oh, they did?
They're the only ones that didn't use cables. Everybody else used steel cables.
I've seen that shit, and it looks horrible.
Ropes. WWF used actual fucking ropes.
Okay.
And I think they still do.
Like
they all say they're less springy.
Yeah.
They're a little stiffer. They're less springy.
It's a goddamn rope.
Yeah, it's a different thing. It's actual rope. And they break sometimes.
I'm shocked that they don't have something
broken ropes.
Yeah, I'm shocked that they don't have just like elastic bands.
The steel cables seem to be the way to go, but the WWE thinks the ropes are, you get that sound of the ropes when they hit them. You get that kind of crunch of rope that sounds right. Yeah. I don't know. Aesthetically, it works.
Yeah, but
it looks like rope. It's not just like that smooth cable cover. It
seems like you could get. Well, even the one that I saw was just like duct tape covered over it, and it looked like dog shit.
Yeah, although
it looked
those
like
are
it hurt.
Yeah, those are not great.
You'd think that they could get like a workout bands. You know what I mean? Like the stress bands.
Yeah.
You think you could get those
I don't know
fat
how much
enough
they hold. If a 400-pound man is running at full speed and putting his body weight like a cannonball into it, is it going to snap and he'd break his neck? Who knows?
Listen, that might add to the excitement. Watching a big 400-pound dude fucking.
It's happened.
Fling through.
It's happened before. It happened.
I would love it.
Yeah, some guy got hurt in training that way. He was a big, like 300-something pounder, and the fucking rope broke, and he cracked the back of his skull open on the back there.
Jesus.
Now, when they end up splitting up the Hart Foundation, Neidhart becomes a commentator for a little bit, which is weird, with Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan, who are like an amazing comedy duo here. And he just wasn't, he felt like he couldn't get in the flow of it, because these guys are like real sharp, going back and forth, and knew each other, and he's just not really that kind of guy. He did some voiceovers and shit like that, and he ended up going back to the ring after that. He's briefly fired, like we said, with the whole incident with the TV monitor and the money for the lawyer. Mean Gene has a good story here about him. He says, quote, "Another great story about Jim came from the Marriott in St. Louis. Jim ordered a bottle of Dom Perignon and drank all but the last few drops in the bottle. He then informed the bartender that the champagne was tainted and he didn't want to pay for it." This is left a sip left. This is no good.
He's that salty bitch that eats the whole steak and then says it was overcooked.
It was
like
overcooked.
Another one.
Yeah. So the bartender called the manager, and they ended up having him escorted from the building by the police. Gene said he was a character, but a good character. See you upstairs eventually, Jim, and yes, I'll bring the Dom Perignon. So he's talking about when they all die. So he ends up coming back to the WWE in the new foundation, which is him and Owen Hart, who is Bret's other brother and his brother-in-law, and they form a tag team wearing possibly the worst outfits in the history of wrestling. Owen Hart, I don't know I don't know if he like backhanded Linda McMahon one time or if he like called Stephanie fat and ugly when she was a child.
Right.
I don't know what he did to Vince, but Vince has just repeatedly put him until he killed him, until he was thrown from a rafter 100 feet to his death on a ring post. Owen was the most shit on wrestler ever. They put him in the stupidest fucking outfits ever worn by human beings in public.
And then threw him 100 feet to his death.
Then put him in a stupid outfit and tossed him to his death. He came in as the Blue Blazer, which was that was the one he died in with the stupid mask, and he was like a superhero character. When he teams with Jim, they wear these terrible these jackets, dude. I don't know how to explain. They're like band leader jackets, but each side of the front is a different color.
Oh no!
And they like overlap, like you overlap it over the one side, and the one side of the front of the jacket's longer than the other.
Oh Jesus!
So like the one side hangs down like past your crotch, and then the arms are different colors. Like one has bright lime green arms and one has bright orange arms.
What?
With Owen and Jim, and they're like checked bright orange.
No.
And their pants are like these big ridiculous genie pants. They're the most ridiculous outfit. You don't put Jim Neidhart in fucking genie pants. You just don't. It's not cool, man. Right. Then Owen ended up teaming up with Coco Beware, and they put him in even fucking worse outfits. These they look like clown pants. These big pants like with suspenders, and they were like they had checkers all over them. They were yellow. They looked like taxi cabs riding around.
Vince saw him and was like, "Deal."
Awful, fucking awful. So he ends up teaming with Owen for a while here. Owen is known, we've talked about this before, as the biggest trickster kind of in the wrestling circuit there. He loved playing jokes on people.
That's why Vince put him in all that stupid shit.
Well, and his were never violent. They weren't like, because some of the guys would do bad shit. Like the Bulldogs would cut up people's clothes while they were in the ring. They'd fucking cut up their pants and all that shit, or they'd, super glue the lock on their suitcase shut.
Oh, what the fuck?
Shit that would cost you money.
Yeah.
Ribs that would cost you money. Owen would do ribs that would fucking drive you crazy. Mm-hmm. Like, he'd pretend to be the front desk and call your room 100 times asking a bunch of questions till the wrestler would go down to the front desk fucking furious.
Ready to fight.
I'm trying to sleep. Stop. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? We have no one has called your room. And then they'll get up to their room and Owen will call them laughing and go, you fucking idiot. Ha ha ha.
Brilliant.
Like Owen would be spying on him, waiting for him to do it. Shit like that. Like he was just like to fuck with people.
That's pretty good.
It's a good. Well, here's another good one here that Jim told. Owen, I guess. Jesus Christ. He gets a bunch of he goes to the front desk and says he lost his key and but gets a random room key.
Yeah.
They just give him a key to some random room. And then he gets all the keys for all the guys and says, "Oh, here, Jim, you can stay in my room because I'm not going to be using it. My wife's in town. I'm going to go over here. So you can use my room," and just gave him the room key. So Neidhart was like, "Fuck yeah, free room.
All by myself? I'm in.
All by myself. This is great." So he walks up, hammered at fucking 1 a.m. And he bursts in the door and there is a fucking sleeping man very scared in his bed. At least he didn't come through the plate glass window, right. But imagine this guy's
fire extinguisher up his ass.
And especially in a hotel where it's like dark in the room, and if you open the door, light floods in. Imagine seeing this silhouette, a giant man with a huge goatee just opening your door with a key in the middle of the night. You're going to be raped and murdered, period. That's it. He's going to rape you and then tear your legs off and beat you to death with him. It's fucking awful. So, that was pretty fucking amazing. So he saw that the guy screamed and Jim was holy shit, Jesus, what the fuck? And then he was like, Owen, fucking bastard. Yeah. And Owen, of course, thought it was great. So anyway, he ends up leaving WWF here, ends up in ECW right in the beginning of ECW, like also in New Japan and then later on WCW. But ECW, which Extreme Championship Wrestling, which became kind of the popular third company in the 90s there. This is when they first started out. This is like when we were recording in my living room in my apartment. They would be at Mike Schmidt's Sports Bar in Philly, like literally a sports bar where they had put a fucking ring in. And they would have matches.
But wouldn't it be great to have been one of the people that watched that shit? Yeah,
especially some of these cards, like he's on this card. Jim fights Salvatore Bellomo, who's an old WWF mainstay in there. Super Destroyers beat the Pitbulls, who the Pitbulls were a good team later on. Sandman, before he was hot shit, was there. So, it was kind of cool. That was in 92, May of 92. June of 92, he's also at the sports bar again, beating Salvatore Bellomo. And then beating Stevie Wonderful, who I can't believe is a wrestler because he was an announcer for ECW for a minute. He was basically a guy, from what I read, who had some sound equipment. Yeah. So they let, hang around. They needed sound equipment, and he had some sound equipment, so they let him wrestle and announce. Time. Yeah, and then they ended up just booting him off of everything. But he was like a skinny redhead guy. He didn't look like a wrestler. Like Jim Neidhart would look abusive if he beat that guy up. It'd be super fucking weird to watch Jim Neidhart beat the shit out of that guy. So he did a bunch of tours with New Japan at that point, because in Japan, he looks like a big scary American. Yeah. It's exactly what they want in Japan as a bad guy. Jim the Anvil fucking Neidhart. Absolutely. And he's got a name too. He's famous, actually. He teamed with Tom Zenk over there, whose his eyes are too close together. Weird looking guy, Tom Zenk. He's a very strange guy here. Then he goes over to WCW and teams with the Junkyard Dog and makes kind of a beer bellied tag team of kind of guys who are beyond their prime. Here they beat Paul Orndorff and Dick Slater actually one night, which is another two guys who are past their prime. And Dick Slater will get his own episode this year probably.
Great.
Also, he's a fucking disaster. He ends up back. He's at the November to Remember ECW show in late 93, where he fights the Sandman, and then goes back to the WWF again in 94. Also, there's a reason why he probably went back to the WWF. In August of 1994, he files for Chapter 13 bankruptcy.
Oh, no.
So that's a problem. So I feel like he filed for bankruptcy, and Stu got on the phone with Vince and said, hey, can you get my son-in-law a job here? He's got no money and he's bankrupt. So, he ends up going back to King of the Ring in 94. And there's a big fucking stupid match with Shawn Michaels' team, and he had these guys in masks. It's the stupidest fucking thing ever. And then Brett had his whole family out there, like his brothers who don't wrestle in the WWF. They were on his team in the Survivor Series, not looking like wrestlers. It was weird. His whole family was in the front row. Very fucking weird. Very weird here. Now, Owen ends up going on to tag with Yokozuna at that point, and then with British Bulldog later on. November 1995, he files for bankruptcy again. So he got himself out, and then he's back in again.
Oh, no.
It's like every time he gets fired from a major promotion, he's got to
go bankrupt.
Yeah, he's living on the edge there. He comes back in 96 to WWF as the Who, or as Who, which is the stupidest gimmick in the history of the world.
It sounds it.
They put him in a mask, a dumb mask, and a dumb outfit. And basically, it's so Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler can make Who's on First jokes. Who? Who's a who? What? It's because they thought
the whole thing.
Vince thought it was funny to have a guy named Who, and literally Stu Hart had asked to give Jim a job, and so he was like, "All right, well, we'll give him this stupid thing here," and that was it. That was the gimmick.
You're not gonna believe it. We get to do the Who jokes,
and his name was Who, and nobody knew who he was, but it was obviously Jim the Anvil Neidhart, because no one else looks and walks and moves like him. He just does that.
He's got a goatee hanging out the bottom of the mask,
and that too. It's got a hole cut out like the girls' softball hats with the ponytails, and it's got a goatee sticking down. So 1996, he's arrested in Leon County, Florida, and I cannot for the life of me find exactly what it's for. It's for a third-degree felony.
Oh.
That's all I know. It's a third-degree felony, but I can't find I have the case number, and it just couldn't fucking find it. No. So I'm very pissed off about that.
Okay.
But it's a third-degree felony of something. And,
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. At this point, too, he does a bunch of indies, a bunch of indie shows, wrestles indie shows in New York. Burke fights Tatanka in these indie shows. Yeah, and over the out of his prime Tatanka. King Kong Bundy's on these shows. Marty Jannetty, after he's been booted, fired. The only guy to be fired more than Jim the Anvil Neidhart is Marty Jannetty.
This is like
who will also have his own episode. So
this is like going to see Vanilla Ice and Salt and Pepper.
Yeah,
today,
and like the fucking it is. It's exactly
you're
like that.
Going. They're treating it like a real gig, and you're standing in the audience going, "Isn't this fucking hysterical?
Isn't this weird? This is crazy, right? Is that Sir Mix-a-Lot? What's happening? Is that Sir Mix-a-Lot?
He's
Holy
there.
Shit. Wow, I didn't know you guys still.
Tone Loc too. Get out of here!
God damn. That's fucking awesome. So he comes back again to the WWF. So he's been fired in 96, comes back in 97, in April of 97. This is when he comes back and actually has a pretty good run here. 97 is right before the, November of 97 is the Survivor Series with the Montreal Screwjob where we've talked about it, where they screw over Brett and steal the title from him and do all that shit and, don't do the whole plan. But it's led up to that with a really good feud with basically Canada versus the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the Neidhart Foundation, which is Brett and Owen and Jim and the British Bulldog and Brian Pillman, and they're all Canadians. And I don't think Pillman's Canadian, but he trained in Calgary with them.
He is now.
He's one of them. And then that would be against Steve Austin's stable. And they had that sort of thing, and they had big fights there. They had In Your House 16 with Canadian Stampede was in Calgary. It was a big deal, sold out show in Calgary. The whole family was there. It was a big heart fucking deal. It was Stone Cold and Ken Shamrock and Gold Dust and the Legion of Doom Road Warriors versus the Canadian faction there in that one. So that led up to that was a pretty good feud with that whole thing. Jim ends up, after Brett leaves, after the Montreal Screwjob, Jim ends up staying there because he said he wasn't even under contract.
Really?
He was just on a handshake deal getting paid money.
Great.
So basically Vince was giving him a paycheck, so he was going to stay. And Brett understood too. He said, he got kids to support. And then Brett ended up getting him in WCW when he moved there. Anyway, he goes to WCW and basically nobody gives a shit. He's well past his fucking prime, man. He returned there January of 98. He was a team with the British Bulldog for a little while. It wasn't any big deal. But he said it was the greatest fucking time of his life working wise because WCW was just threw money down the toilet.
Beautiful.
They would hire everybody, even if they weren't using them. So like Randy Macho Man Savage's brother, Leapin' Lanny Poffo, was signed for...
Did I just learn something?
You didn't know they were related?
No.
Yeah, Leapin' Lenny's his brother.
Okay.
Randy Poffo is his real name.
Makes sense.
Yeah, his dad's Angelo Poffo.
Okay.
They gave Leapin' Lanny Poffo, he was signed for 4 years making over $100,000 a year and never had a match.
Oh my God, I want that deal.
They were throwing money down the toilet. So Jim said at this point, Brett got him a deal, so he got a contract. He comes in, he's making over $100,000 a year, and they hardly ever used him. He said it was fucking great. He goes, I'd show up, I'd put my fucking gear on, and I'd sit in the locker room, and they'd be like, we're not nothing for you tonight. And he's like, this is amazing. I still get a paycheck. This is a guy, 91 straight days on the road. He's like, I'm just sitting in the locker room drinking beers and getting paid for it. It's fucking great. He was
and no money is coming out of this, going back to Vince for fucking lawyers.
Terrific. So yeah, he was thrilled with this arrangement with WCW for a while. Only problem is they did rarely utilize him, and it was pretty much like he was retired is what it looked like. September 8th, 1998, he is arrested for writing bad checks in Pensacola, Florida.
I thought he had money.
That's the thing. This is fucking interesting. Police, they pull up to a parked car at 4 a.m. And they see Jim passed out behind the wheel, which is never good. The police ran his license plate. They discovered that he had a warrant for his arrest for kiting bad checks. So he had written a $200 bad check a couple of years before. He's arrested and post bond later on and comes out, ends up whatever there. So he leaves WCW in September of that year, kind of right after the arrest. 2 weeks later is his last outing. And this is kind of where we're going to not talk about British Bulldog anymore because he's dead soon. So I have to bring up a couple British Bulldog items. Okay. British Bulldog and Bret Hart fought at SummerSlam 92. Okay. During this time, I guess British Bulldog wasn't wrestling all summer. Like I said, this is, Bret's brother-in-law. They're all related here. So Brett was trying to get a hold of him all summer to work a match out, and British Bulldog was never around. And then finally, the show's in England, so they're flying over to England. Brett runs into Jim, and he says, "Have you seen fucking Davey?" And Jim goes, "Yeah, I just dropped him and Diana off at the airport. Yeah, he's real fucked up, though, on that flight." And he's like, "What do you mean he's real fucked up?" He's like, "Well, he's been smoking crack all night." Like, all fucking night, for days. Yeah. So he's real fucked up. And Brett's like, "How do you know that?" He's like, "Oh, I've been smoking crack with him for days. That's why. I'm just fucking smoking tons of crack." Apparently... Yeah, Jim was like, "He's got a real problem." Yeah. And Dave, Brett's like, you were with him,
what
dummy.
If
he's got a problem, so do you, stupid. Apparently, Jim and Davey were fucking crack buddies. Yeah. They smoked tons of crack together. That was their thing. This happened all the time. They were both real fucked up on drugs a lot. Davey's infamous for it, obviously, and Jim was right there with him, was kind of his partner in crime. Yeah. Jim also... there's some weird stories about back in the day, like Diana Hart's book, who was Brett's sister and Davey's wife. She wrote this scathing book. It's fucking ripping everybody apart, including her brother and everybody else. She says that her and Davey would go down to Jim's house in Florida, and she'd hear Jim yelling at his wife, who was Diana's sister, "When are you getting your fucking family out of here? I don't want people at my house," and all this shit. So they thought he was kind of nuts. That was an issue. Also, okay, Diana claims in her book, and this is a pretty big claim, she claims that Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, used to give her GHB at night, slip it in her drink at night so she'd pass out, and then her claim was that he would rape her in her sleep.
And they were married?
They were married, but he wanted to fuck her. He wanted the ass, basically.
He wanted to fuck her how he wanted to fuck her.
He'd fuck her, well, he wanted to fuck her in the ass, is the bottom line of the whole thing, and she didn't want that. So
he Cosby'd her.
So he would do this to her, and in the book, she talks about, waking up and not understanding what she felt and all this shit, and it's horrible. So she ends up bringing it up to her sister, Ellie, and says, "It's so weird, I go to sleep and I'll pass out. I don't even remember falling asleep. And then I'll wake up and literally my ass will hurt. I'm fucking sore and I don't understand it." Laughing because it's uncomfortable, but
it's the old
crazy
joke. It's the old, "I don't drink tequila anymore because it makes my asshole hurt."
That's the thing. Yeah. It's one of those.
It's such a ridiculous thing.
But, so Ellie was like, "Yeah, Davey's drugging you. Yeah, Jim used to do that to me all the time." She said that Jim would tell her, and we don't know how true this is right away. This is alleged. This is from Diana Hart's book. Right. But she said that Ellie told her that Jim would give her GHB at night because she said it would help. She didn't sleep well, and it would help her sleep, which obviously it does. Right. And back then, remember the Chris Adams episode, the bodybuilders were all taking this at night because it burned fat at night. It was supposed to help you lose weight. So Jim was giving it to her as a sleep aid and a weight loss thing, and then Jim would have his way with her.
Wow.
And that's what she said. So she was like, "Yeah, Jim used to do that to me all the time, blah, 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 blah." So that's
so ridiculous.
It's pretty fucking crazy,
so
these guys.
The British Bulldog likely learned it from Jim.
Probably. Or, well, they're all famous. In the 80s, the wrestlers were famous for drugging people. That was a big thing they used to do.
Hilarious.
They used to slip Halcyon in women's drinks and bars.
Jerks.
And fucking, do horrible things to them. You can find a ton of shoot interviews where guys are saying shit 10 years ago where they're telling these stories that are like, ha-ha, funny, ha-ha, quote-unquote, funny fucking stories. I guess in podcast land, you need to see my air quotes to know I was being sarcastic.
They're super illegal things.
Super illegal things that if they said them now, they would be ostracized from society immediately. Rightfully fucking so. Sure. But then they were considered like, "Oh, that was crazy times." It's like they would give them, the rockers used to give women, they drug women and then take them in and do whatever, and they'd shave their heads and fucking draw on them with magic marker and then dump them out in the hallway naked.
Wow.
So they'd wake up with no hair and naked in the hallway
with the cock drawn on their cheek,
just because they thought a wrestler was cute, and so the wrestler drugged them. That's the type of shit some of these guys used to do back then.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it's very much the Rock, and I'm sure more than one or two comedians did that in the 80s too. So he starts working indies after this.
I just saw the guy from Home Improvement doing that to people.
Oh God, Tim Allen doing it. He'd be the opposite because he had cocaine, so they'd be all awake from Tim Allen, hyper aware. So he's on the October '99 Heroes of Wrestling show, which is known as like one of the worst shows in the history of the world. There's a bunch of like old guys that were out of shape giving bad matches, and he fights Jake the Snake Roberts in that one, which is a pretty ugly match. Not good at all. He continues to fight. He fights it's Neidhart and King Kong Bundy versus Jake Roberts and Yokozuna, who weighed like 700 pounds at that point. No shit. He's fighting in all these. He fights they reconstitute Stampede. Bruce Hart brings Stampede back because Vince never paid it off fully to Stu, so they still retain rights to the name and shit like that. He's wrestling in a bunch of different ones. MCW, which was down in Maryland. He fights the Blue Meanie. The Blue Meanie was an ECW wrestler who started his own promotion down there. And he's fighting just around in all these little indies. Nothing's, fighting Tatanka again. Three-way here, fights Jimmie Snuka and Tony Atlas here. So that's at a show in 1999. So 2001, Jim and Ellie get a divorce.
Okay.
So they get a divorce. She's had quite a bit of enough.
She's had an ass full of him.
She's had a bit of an ass full. They file for divorce. She's had an ass full. Well, that would be Diana, but she's had something full. So 2005, him and Ellie are sued by a Calgary businessman who alleges that they stole $9,000 worth of jewelry and pawned it. The lawsuit ends up being dropped a few months later. Jim tells a newspaper that it was, quote, a misunderstanding between good friends. He and his wife and the businessman's wife pawned the jewelry to buy a car engine with the intent of buying the items back later. He told the paper, quote, I'm not the Pink Panther, a thief and a liar.
All right.
So he's being very, very, very clever.
He's adorable.
He's very, very cute here.
The Pink Panther.
The Pink Panther.
Good Lord.
So all through 2000, all through there to 2003, he's fighting in all these little weird indie ones where he'll fight, every month it's a different promotion. He's fighting fucking Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Honky Tonk Man and shit. Like in 2003, it's the Honky Tonk Man and Hacksaw Jim Duggan fight Jim Neidhart and some guy I never heard of. So it's
unbelievable.
They're cramming as many old guys in there as they can. 2006 and 7, he does the same thing. December 10th, 2007 is his big day, though. It's the Raw WWE 15th anniversary of Raw, the show Raw, and he returns for the first time since 1997. So 10 years he participates in the 15th anniversary Battle Royal and is eliminated by Skinner, who is a terrible character with like tobacco juice all over his shirt, played by, I want to say, Steve Kern. Weird. He played like an Everglades fucking guy. It was weird.
A hillbilly.
But like a Everglades hillbilly. A Glade Billy. One of those. Glades Billy. 2008, he's in rehab, and this happens a few times. He got twice in this period he goes to rehab, both times paid for by WWE.
Of course.
Because in 2006 they started the wellness program, which based on Eddie Guerrero dying from a drug overdose, they put out a thing saying any current or former wrestlers, if you've ever worked for us, we'll pay for your rehab, basically. And so it's cheaper than the bad PR.
And based on Tammy Lynn Sitch, it's clearly working.
It works wonders, obviously. It's not great. Now, his daughter here, Natalia, said, quote, I can only speak as a daughter who loves her father. I was fortunate enough to have the WWE there to save his life. We were one of the lucky ones. That's also when she was working there. She's working there, so she's happy. She's pretty positive about the WWE's role in the whole thing. Now, he also makes appearances on the WWE reality show Total Divas because she's on it. So he ends up being on it and kind of puts him back in the main spotlight because she's like a main member.
You got to talk about the roots.
So you got to talk about that. And she's a second generation and he's an old star. And, you might get a few older people watching the show who know who he is, even if they don't know who she is. So he goes around all through this point, more kind of indies. He does a couple shots in TNA, which is the other terrible wrestling that's not great. They have him beat Jay Lethal in 1 minute and 30 seconds. I don't know why you'd bring an old man out to beat some, it's weird, but they have him beat this Jay Lethal guy in 1 minute and 30 seconds. More indie shit. They have, he teams with Greg the Hammer Valentine a couple times, who looks like somebody's stepmom.
By now, yeah.
He looked like somebody's stepmom in his peak. In 1985, he looked like your stepmom that your dad met at the bowling alley. And she can hold her beer, and she smokes about 2.5 packs of cigarettes a day. And she's got like a 220 average, too, in the lane.
She's great.
Good. She's pretty good.
And boy, can she put down pretzel sticks.
Oh, like nobody's business. Nobody's business. But she'd give you a ride if you need it. She's a nice stepmom.
As a matter of fact, that's how I met her.
She's good to have.
She pushed it down like a dinosaur eating an egg.
Jesus Christ. He teams with the Honky Tonk Man a little bit in 2008 for a couple of shots. So it's like once a month he's doing indie shows, a couple times a month, depending. March of 2009, he's arrested for speeding and having no driver's license on a motorcycle.
What are you doing?
So you got to have a license for that, pal.
Afraid so.
And he's been driving motorcycles, as we know, since
he started.
For 10 years, he has no license.
Since he sued U.S. Airways.
Yeah, he's been fucking driving a Ninja. So yeah, he's in 2009. Later on in the year, he's again arrested in Hillsborough County, also for no motorcycle license and speeding. So he got arrested once for it and was like, I'll keep speeding with no license. I don't fucking need to do anything like that.
Lord.
So at this point now they keep him in jail for a minute because they're like, hey, dummy.
Yeah.
Fucking, you can't keep doing this shit.
You can't do the same thing over and over and over again.
What the fuck are you going to do? And he doesn't know what to do. And they do let him out eventually because, I mean, it's not a violent crime or anything. So they let him out. Only thing is, though, they impounded his bike and shit. And his family was starting to do a thing with him where they weren't helping him anymore. Yeah. Where they were like doing a tough love thing. Where they were like, if he's in jail, they're not going to bail him out.
Lock him.
Shit like that. Like, maybe this will teach him a lesson. Or they honestly used to say, well, even if he's in there a week, maybe he'll sober him up a little bit.
Yeah.
Even if for a week, that's better than...
Can't get it in there.
Can't get it. It's harder, and especially in a county jail. It's and you're just new there. You're not going to really know the ropes enough to be scoring, probably. So, yeah, he ends up, they make him from, it's Hillsborough County, the police station. They end up making him walk home.
Oh, Jesus.
So imagine this, like a little kid who's like, he's walking home, and the fucked up part is he's got to go through all these, and he's obvious who he is. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you can see him from space with that fucking goatee and the flat top. So, and he still looks like that. So he's walking through neighborhoods and people are shouting at him and, hey, it's Jim the Anvil Neidhart there. And he walks through this one neighborhood and it's a bad neighborhood too, but I don't think he's afraid. And he's walking by oblivious to what he's doing, and he hears a voice from a stoop come by, and it's Estevez Jones, MMA fighter and 70s blaxploitation film star. And he says, motherfucker, how is it you come to arrive here? Man, what the fuck is wrong with your ass? Motherfucker, I seen you on TV. No, I've seen you on the TV. I seen you whooping people's asses. Yeah. Even black dudes with hard ass heads, man. You be whooping their asses, and I'm like, man, how you be doing that shit? Our head's harder than that. What the fuck? Nah, but you be doing that shit. I'm like, all right, he all right. And you going, you fucking up. You beating up stewardesses and shit. They acquit you. I know you did that shit, motherfucker. Who you think you bullshitting? Who you? Estevez Jones, motherfucker. Hold on. Hold on, Estevez. I want a piece of this guy. Jim. No, but he's mine. It's my week. No, it's not. This is my week. I'm responsible for him. Jim, how is it you've come to arrive here, Jim? Jesus Christ, pal, I gave you every damn chance in the world, and you put your shirt back on. Don't take it off. I know I normally want. Put it back on. You're not wrestling for me anymore. Put your shirt back on. You're a goddamn disgrace. Pink bot. Wear the pink. Jim, take your shirt off and get out. Get out there, Jim. I don't care about the drug. Get out there and kick some ass, Jim. Get out there and rumble. Rumble, Jim. Rumble.
Sell tickets, Jim.
Poof, and they both disappear in a poof of leopard skin and sold tickets. I don't know. Fucking bow. And so 2010 he remarries Ellie.
Yeah,
which is
they're back in love.
I guess they're back in love again now. She never really left him though. No. They were always together. They got sued together.
She was giving him a hard time, a hard love.
I think so. Yeah, just breaking his balls a little. You know how it goes. So,
that's the hardest love ever.
Yeah,
divorce him.
Teach you a lesson now. I filed paperwork to teach your ass a lesson. See how you like that?
That's harder than leaving him in the clink.
I would say
divorce.
So. None of that shit's true. I didn't make him walk home or any of that. I just needed him to cross paths as Estevez Jones, and I didn't know how.
That would be terrific if they really did.
No.
And he's wandering around.
I'm sure he got a ride.
People screaming, "Is that you?" And
he's like, Jim?
"Do you have some shit? I need some shit.
I need shit." Boone County mating call. Shake the fuck. So September 6, 2010. This is in Thonotosasa, Florida.
Hell yeah.
What the fuck is that? It sounds like there's alligators everywhere.
It's named after somebody's grandma and grandpa. So
I'm sure it is.
We're going over to Thonotosasa's house.
Thonotosasa. What the hell's the goddamn shit name? So this is shortly before 3 p.m. It's about 2:55 local time. He's pumping gas at there's like a Food Mart gas station. And they say, quote, when he began yelling and causing a disturbance for some reason. This is the middle of the afternoon at a gas station. Police were called, and when they get there, they find him in his silver Pontiac Sunfire.
Oh, no.
Which is not a good car.
Oh, it's the Casey Anthony car.
It's a bad car. And especially for a big giant guy to fucking wedge himself into a Pontiac Sunfire.
It's so little.
That's every mile you go, you're reminded of how you failed in life, of how things are not going how you wanted them to go.
Oh, what a shit
if you're driving
car.
that car and you're him.
It's the today version of the Fiero.
I was going to say it's like the Dodge Neon of today. It's like a shit like fucking one of those.
The Fiero's made by the same fucking company.
Yeah,
what
like
a piece of shit.
Geo something.
Geo Metro.
Geo
Tracker.
Yeah, little shitty trackers. So he's in the Pontiac Sunfire, not in the driver's seat, mind you, not in the passenger seat. Where is he then? Back seat?
Yeah.
No,
in
trunk.
The trunk.
He's in the trunk.
Pumping gas in the trunk?
He's in the trunk at the gas station. He's in the trunk, and he's seen by police officers opening pill bottles in the trunk of his car. He's got multiple pill bottles, and he's opening them and looking through them, and he's dropping pills all over himself. He's just tearing through a bunch of pills.
This is the most Florida scene you've ever painted.
This is Florida.
Holy shit.
Like I said, this is next to the meth, the meth alligator on the flag. This
absolutely.
is the same exact thing. When the cops arrived, because he's in Florida, obviously they describe him as, quote, agitated and aggressive. They said that during the time they were trying to, get him out of the trunk and apprehend him, he was ingesting multiple pills that he dropped on the ground while inside the trunk of his vehicle.
Wow.
So he got out and there was a bunch of pills there, and they were wrestling with him, and he's just grabbing pills and stuffing them in his face.
Wow.
So just like, these I need.
Yeah.
So, so that's what they said. That's the quote. Ingesting multiple pills that he dropped on the ground while inside the trunk of the vehicle. That's the arrest report. The pill bottles that they find have 95 OxyContin pills, 95, and 28 methadone pills.
Okay.
So this is opiate shit, man. This is some hardcore. Methadone is fucking...
That's using the heroin and the anti-heroin at the same fucking time.
Well, you use the methadone and then you chip with heroin because the methadone doesn't give you quite the same rush. It gives you the same overview from what I feel, from what I hear, but doesn't give you that pop.
Right.
So you chip with shit in between, and that's how people OD like that, because they're just too much. And a lot of times too, they've been doing methadone, so they think their tolerance is higher than it is, and they do what they usually do, and then they OD.
And it's night
because that's a tolerance thing with heroin. So the pills, it gets worse. These aren't his pills.
No,
the pills were prescribed. They're in a prescription bottle
to Casey Anthony
in Florida. Now they're prescribed to a Mary Cotillo, who is a friend of Jim's, who had reported that they had been stolen when her house was broken into.
He's Ryan Leaf.
He's Ryan Leafing.
Wow.
But with friends. Ryan Leaf did it to strangers.
That's right.
This is friends. He makes a court appearance where his bond was set at $100,000. $138,500.
That's specific.
That is very excessive. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You get out, I mean, fucking, you could kill someone and get less bail than that. That's crazy. But he's charged with 2 counts of possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute, because that's a shitload of pills. 2 counts of trafficking in illegal drugs. So he's got serious charges. 1 count of burglary of an unoccupied dwelling, and 1 count of grand theft 3rd degree.
Yeah.
Those are bad charges.
That's yuck.
They got him. I mean, I don't think he was going to traffic them.
No.
He was probably going to.
That's personal use.
They were going to be ingested by Friday, probably, I would assume. This is just Friday night, guys. I don't know what you're talking about.
Those were gone before gas is pumped if they don't interrupt him.
Absolutely. So I saw some post here, somebody and we don't know if this is true or not, but this is from an independent film set, a movie called Booted. It came out in 2011. It has Cameron from Ferris Bueller in it.
Oh, no.
His friend. Yeah, it's very sad. Apparently, this was an indie film here, and one of the crew guys said that Jim the Anvil, they were filming it in Florida, and Jim the Anvil popped up, was hanging around the set one day, and people knew who he was, so like, oh cool, Jim the Anvil. And they said that he was going around the set asking if anybody had any Percocets. So like,
heard about you Hollywood types. Who's got the perks?
Who's got perks here? And like they were like, we're making a fucking indie movie, what are you talking about? So this whole situation,
he's not in the movie.
No, he's not. No, I scoured IMDb for he's not in the movie. He was just hanging out on set because they were filming near his house or something.
That's incredible.
So Ross Hart, who's one of his brother-in-laws, said, quote, about the arrest, "From what I understand, he was agitated and not very happy to be handcuffed and taken away." Now, Jenny, who is the oldest daughter, said that her father needs help. She said, quote, "It's sad because we know our father is not a criminal. He's a sick person who needs help, and this is a serious cry for help." She says, "This is something that's very out of character for him. He's always had issues with drugs, but it's only affected him personally and his family." Yeah, when you're smoking crack, that's going to affect your family. Right. His 3 daughters love him dearly, and we don't want him to be another statistic. Fair enough. Yeah. Jim Ross, the longtime announcer and has all the barbecue restaurants and everything, he said he posted about this kind of for the company, like a proxy company statement. He says, quote, "The recent arrest of Jim the Anvil Neidhart came as a surprise. The 55-year-old Neidhart was arrested in Tampa for alleged possession and conspiracy to distribute pain meds, as I understand it, not to mention alleged burglary of said items. It sounds to me that Jim may well have an obvious drug issue that needs addressing in the form of a long-term stay in a rehabilitation center. If my assumption is accurate, then 30 days likely won't do the trick. Yeah. But be that as it may, one thing for sure is that recovery always starts with the individual truly wanting to stay and be clean and sober. I can't see Jim being a burglar, but I can see him having a drug and alcohol issue that may have manifested themselves to the point that Jim needs to seek help and, more importantly, truly wants to stay clean and sober." This was 2010, and this looked terrible for Linda McMahon, Vince's wife, who was running for the Senate in 2010.
Oh, Jesus, that's right.
So they were always talking about, you're a silver-haired middle-aged white man for all these fucking wrestlers, and she said, "No, I'm not." And then this guy's fucking doing this. It's like, never mind. Jesus Christ.
If there's anything he is, it is a timing extraordinaire.
No, his timing is amazing.
He finds timing perfectly.
Wait till you see the end of this episode, how amazing his timing is. Holy shit here. So he keeps, 2010, he's doing more indies. He's fighting fucking Bill Eadie at one point, who's Demolition Axe, the Masked Superstar, who's got to be in his 60s at this point. He's fighting him. He's so old. He's fighting... It's a bunch of shit indies. I'm not even going to get into all these indies. April of 2011, he's arrested in Tampa, Florida. Yeah. Let's get into that.
This is great.
Yeah, he's arrested for driving without a license and for operating an unregistered vehicle.
It's not even registered.
No, just driving a car with no... just put it out there.
No tags.
There's a car, I start it, and then if I hit the gas, the wheels turn. So what do I need?
Perfect.
Who else do I need to talk to about this? Fuck it.
Who needs to know?
Who needs to know? I know how to drive. What's the deal? So he's released after paying a $750 bond. He says he wasn't arrested, though. When they talk to him, the press talks to him. He says that he realized he missed a traffic date on charges of driving without a license and operating an unregistered vehicle, and he turned himself into the sheriff's office saying, "Hey, I missed my court date," and they had him pay a $750 bond and release him. He said he was not incarcerated or ever taken into police custody.
Okay.
So he's very concerned about his reputation, this guy, very concerned. So November 2011, he's so concerned he's arrested for driving a motorcycle without a license again. A fucking again.
Damn it, Jim.
Come on, Jim. Jesus Christ, buddy. Put your shirt on, pal.
You know God. The rules by now, Jim.
Fuck. Well, he knows the rules, but he doesn't follow them. You'd think by now one thing he would know are rules of courtrooms and etiquette and shit like that. Well, in 2012, he's arrested at the Hillsborough County Court in Florida for contempt of court. He was at a hearing for his previous
the motorcycle
controlled substance thing.
Oh, Jesus.
And he had a huge outburst and was taken into custody and held in contempt of court on it. And then he ends up still being incarcerated. They set no bail. Judge ends up sentencing him to 5 months and 29 days in jail over
that's
this.
a long time.
So, yeah, he does about 3.5 months out of 6 months in jail for the pills. Trafficking and
But he's still got 2 other cases looming.
He's still got other shit hanging over him. It's crazy. I mean, if you're his family, you got to be like, dude, we're tired. It's just every day with you. You know?
And you're in your 60s. How are you not tired?
Fuck,
you've got to be fucking exhausted.
It's impossible to, but I almost feel bad for Vince McMahon. Like that's how much he's fucked up. I don't though at all because he's a piece of shit. But it's goddamn insane. Like I feel bad for all these people, Jimmy, all of them, but not nearly as bad as I feel for Jim Neidhart, a staff pharmacist at OH in Orlando, Florida. He lives in Florida, this poor guy.
And deals with
pills. Good Lord. That one is the second worst one.
Yeah.
There's one that's worse. Jim Neidhart, software manager at 5ME LLC in Cincinnati, Ohio. Jim Neidhart, president and CEO at the Neidhart Company in Norfolk, Virginia. They do financial services and insurance things. So you're gonna
people are going to how do you have any?
Whoa!
Fuck this guy.
How many pills did he have? No, I'm not giving him my money. Finally, Jim Neidhart, associate professor of physics at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, the exact opposite of this guy. His professional interests include quantum physics, systems theory, and the integration of scientific, philosophical, and religious perspectives, all being formed of personal knowledge, as ably pointed out by the scientist-philosopher Michael Polanyi.
Yeah.
That's his fucking bio.
Does it say if he drives a Sunfire?
He drives an 88 Sunfire. He drives an 87 Pontiac Grand Am. Does very well.
And a Ninja.
He's a member of the American Physical Society, American Association of Physics Teachers, a fellow of the American Scientific Affiliation, and has published 26 professional papers.
My word.
He wrote, at this point when I found him, The Participatory Nature of Modern Science and the Judeo-Christian Theism. This is the exact opposite of our guy. Jim would go, huh? If you told him that title, he'd go, what was that now?
I don't know any of those words.
I think you said Christian. That's a word I know, probably.
I know a guy named Christian.
I heard of science. They made me take a class once. High school. I failed it, but they made me take
these
it.
Pills, that's science.
Yep. He makes a bunch of appearances on Total Divas at that point. His daughter Natalia there is just he's a handful to her.
Sure.
She says, quote, he wants to do well and I don't want to ride him so much, but I just have this extreme anxiety. I literally dream about it. It's so frustrating because my dad has no idea how many tears I've cried for him, how many sleepless nights I've had because of him, how many pits I've had in my stomach because of him. It's
heartbreaking.
Heart fucking breaking. Yeah, it's brutal. And
heartbreaking.
She said, I didn't even spend Christmas with my husband because I spent Christmas with my dad in rehab.
Oh.
Brutal. So what does he do? He wrestles a little more in 2013. A bunch of indies, shit like that. August of 13, he does an interview with a Philadelphia radio station where he says, quote, I really, really, really want to sign a WWE Legends contract. So I hope that being back on mainstream TV will help the WWE take notice. They sign these older guys to Legends contracts where they make a wrestling figure of them and they fucking have them do appearances for the company and all that shit, and they give them a fucking salary. And it's basically a way to take care of the guys, you can make a couple bucks off him and you can take care of him and not have them out. It looks bad when guys who are huge stars for you are homeless when they're 58
and getting arrested constantly for the same shit. It
looks bad for you. So this is as much for them as for you. This is amazing though. They asked him about, this was at the time when Riley Cooper, the Philadelphia Eagles receiver, had the N-word controversy there. This is what let's tune in their own words on this because it's fucking ridiculous.
He's got something to say?
They asked him about it because it's a Philly radio station. Yeah. In their own words, quote, "I cannot believe that Chip Kelly made such a big deal out of it. He should have nipped it in the bud and just forgot about it. This is a young guy drinking liquor in the afternoon and said something he didn't really mean. I think Chip handled that very poorly. He's a first-year coach. He should have downplayed it and forgot about it."
What?
Are you out of your fucking mind?
He's at a Kenny Chesney concert screaming the N-word.
Say that.
Talking about, I'll fight all of you N-words.
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, Chip Kelly should have ignored the 70% of his team who are black and fucking just said, it's fine, guys, don't worry about it.
He was drunk at a Kenny Chesney show. What do you expect him to do?
Come on, it's Kenny Chesney. You have to say that to get in the door. It comes with a ticket. It says must say N-word at the door. And it's part of the gig.
Wear cowboy boots and a hat and scream the N-word.
That's the game. That's how it goes. August of 2013, he does an interview. The Marlins, the Florida Marlins, have a bunch of wrestlers at the game, a bunch of old wrestlers, and he's doing there's a bunch of all the press are doing interviews with this one and that one.
They were in the neighborhood.
They're in the neighborhood. There's a video of somebody interviewing Brett and Jim because Brett's there, and it's they're the Hart Foundation, and they're both in Marlins jerseys, and Brett is. Typical Brett. Brett is stone sober in every interview I've ever seen him in. He's the most just very sober, very blah, blah, blah.
Or he handles it great.
Very straightforward. I'm sure after hours, but he's he knows when to get fucked up, basically. So he's in there just having a normal conversation. He's his typical boring self and blah, blah, blah. And Jim the whole time is next to him, sweating, pouring sweat. Twitching. His whole face is twitching. He's rubbing his hands on his face. He's rubbing his head.
He's a crackhead.
Like a fucking crackhead. He just did so much of something. And they talk to him and he leans in and says shit real weird and then he twitches a whole bunch. And he's
my God.
And it's not on purpose.
No.
He's trying to control it. You can see him trying to control it. And he's like, grr.
He's like, Jim, you look like a crackhead. Stop it.
Every time he talks, Brett looks at him and you can see the look on his face oh shit. Fuck me. Don't ask him any more fucking questions. Jesus Christ.
He's like Kanye.
It's bad.
Kanye and Mike Myers on that telethon.
Dude, it's so fucking bad. And it's it gets uncomfortable. Yeah. Put it that way, dude. It gets real uncomfortable and it gets this video comes out super public too.
Really?
Becomes a real big deal. This is when his daughter starts talking about him a lot publicly, trying to get him to get help, and obviously he's got a problem and
I can't wait to watch it.
It's you'll see it. It's a mess here. He also wrestles a little bit. He's wrestles in 2016. May of 2016. Frankie the Pizza Guy, Jim Neidhart, and somehow wrestling still Coco Beware. Remember him with the bird and the bad outfit with Owen Hart?
Still around?
They fought some other guys, two guys I've never heard of, and Nikolai Volkov. Okay, how the fuck is Nikolai Volkov still? Nikolai Volkov was an old man in the 80s. Right. He was his peak was the 70s. How the fuck was he wrestling in 2016? Wow. It's at this point that it is announced and then taken off social media. One of the daughters announces it and then takes it off, but it's start to be spread throughout that everybody knows that Jim has Alzheimer's.
Oh, no.
At this point. He's starting to slip a little bit mentally. And I listened to an interview with him that he did in 2016. Yeah. And it's one of his... and it's Chris Jericho's podcast. Yeah. He did it, and he knows stuff. Yeah. But he's got his son-in-law there with him, and his son-in-law will fill in a big, he'll start telling the story, and then his son-in-law will fill in a bunch of details, and then Jim will be like, so then we went from here to here. But his son-in-law will fill in because then this one did that, and he blah, 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 blah.
That's no fun to hear.
No, I mean, Jim is still cool on it, because, I mean, the you're too high. Yeah. He still has memories and shit. He's not I don't know anything about that. You wouldn't know it. You could tell they sent the son-in-law with him to make sure that he didn't space out
Sure.
some shit. Because he messed up a couple of things that were like, he messed up like, that might just be, it's 30 years ago, but he messed up a couple things that were not, and nobody corrected him. And it was shit that you would know.
Yeah.
Like they asked when you won the title from the British Bulldogs, he brought up the rope breaking, and that's when they lost the title to the Rockers. That didn't happen. So, and it was like 5 years later. But nobody corrected him on it, or 3 years later. No one corrected him on it.
Everybody just looked at each other and was like, are we going to go with this?
They're just like, let's just, his son-in-law just started saying like, yeah, from the British Bulldogs they won it, and just kind of ignored it and went on from there.
That's too bad.
It was really sad. It was, it's fucking sad. Now, August 13th, 2018, Neidhart and his wife are at Natty's house there. Natalie, they call her Natty. It's 6:30 in the morning. Jim apparently gets up to adjust a thermostat because it's Florida and it's disgusting and it's August. He gets up to adjust a thermostat, and his wife said he made a twitched a couple times, like he was like made a weird thing, like she said he was looked like he was about to start dancing, and then he apparently had a seizure and collapsed. He'd been taking seizure medication and been having a lot of seizures lately. I guess medically it's something to do with the Alzheimer's. It affects electrons or some shit, so you have seizures.
Looked like he was about to dance and then did the worm.
And then, he did the fall and smash his head on the wall and split it open.
Oh, no!
So his wife calls 911. They said that he's not breathing at the moment. She's unable to help him. The 911 gets there, and she said he had difficulty sleeping. He fell, hit his head. He had a 4-inch gash on his face from falling, and he ends up being pronounced dead.
Right there?
Right there. Later at the hospital, but he's pretty much dead on the floor. He wasn't breathing.
My God.
He wasn't breathing. The death is due to a grand mal seizure, and he hit his head. And they said that it's abnormal electrical activity throughout the brain related to Alzheimer's, and it's been causing him a lot of seizures lately.
Damn it.
Had a seizure. The Pasco Sheriff's Office said that there's no foul play suspected, and apart from the fact that he fell and hit his head, he had no other injuries or anything like that. He wasn't.
That's horrible.
When he died, the family asked in lieu of flowers or donations that you give donations to the Women's Alzheimer's Movement in Los Angeles, California, which is the Women's Alzheimer's Movement.org. And it's never a bad thing to give to fucking Alzheimer's research, because
that's maybe the worst.
That should fucking scare the shit out of every single one of you people out there, because it scares the shit out of me, and I don't want to be crazy, or I don't want to not know where I am. That happened to my grandmother, and the one that died, and she was a fucking mess, and it sounds terrible.
When I wake up in the morning and I'm like out of it and I've got to run, I've got to get out of the house now, and I'm trying to grab things and trying to remember where I put everything.
All the time.
And that is a third of it. Like,
nothing.
That's
and
nothing.
There's physical manifestations too, and it's the worst.
Jesus.
It's the worst fucking way to go, and
I can't even imagine.
It crushes everybody around you because they have to watch you deteriorate. That's one thing. At least he was to the point where he wasn't like, I don't know where I am, and wandering off in the middle of the night or anything. He was still with it enough to where nobody really had to watch him. He didn't have to suffer all the way through it. But that's brutal. He's 63 years old. Dead at 63.
I don't want that one.
No. So finally, so he died in August. Early this year, after I put it on the schedule to do Jim the Anvil Neidhart on this date, they decide that they're going to induct the Hart Foundation into the WWE Hall of Fame.
The whole damn thing.
It's Brett and Jim, and Brett's already in us individually, so he's getting in on his own. He's only the second guy to get in twice.
How about that?
Ric Flair also is 4 Horsemen and by himself.
That's great.
And then he's Hart Foundation and by himself. So this week, this Sunday is WrestleMania, and then I think it's the day before that, they have the big induction ceremony into the Hall of Fame. So I did not know that this would fall on WrestleMania weekend, nor did I know that he was going to be in the wrestling. They were going to put him in the Hall of Fame. So we have timing as good as his sometimes. Incredible. I swear to Christ. So dumb luck, but that's him, and he'll be inducted then. So if you like Jim Neidhart, tune into that, and you can check that out. Right. And so we weren't trying to do that on purpose, is what I wanted to say. That was the dumbest, stupidest luck ever. Can't get enough of Jim the Anvil Neidhart? I fucking can't.
I miss him.
Tons of autographs all over online. There's a million autographs out there. Also, Amazon has the WWE came out with the newer figures now that are pretty fucking cool. They have one with him with, it's got the tag belt and he's in the pink outfit. It's fucking awesome looking figure. It's $15 with $4.74 shipping from that.
That's a bargain.
And then they go from there. Also, go find the goddamn the LJN rubber figure from the 80s, the good big rubber figure. That was an awesome one. Jim the Anvil had a really good figure. Go find that one. It's on eBay like $60-$80, something like that, because it's a rarer one.
They really got to figure out what they're going to do with these guys once they're done with them. You know what I mean?
Well, now, it's weird.
Neurological shit like that, there's got to be a link to that.
Who knows, man? It's not helping, because he played football, and then he wrestled, and he's been hitting the fucking head a lot. And that's the thing. John Oliver's whole show was about how you make these guys fucking employees. And that's the thing. John Oliver was saying we should do a hashtag, and then he did like this kind of commercial that was sort of funny, but I think it could have been better. There's got to be something that he made a point that wrestling, the one thing that WWE will react to is fan pressure. It's the only thing they listen to.
Cave.
Because they have to. That's their whole business. Without the fan, I mean, that's it. So they will cave to fan pressure. If the fans put enough pressure on them to fucking treat these guys like they should be treated, they will have to do it. They will. If every fan in every show, every TV taping, all the fucking signs are make these guys employees or whatever the fuck you want your hashtag to be, they are going to fucking do it because it's ruining their TV show.
It is.
And it's making them look bad. And they don't like that shit.
That's what it is. It's making them look bad.
It's making them look bad.
Anything that Vince hates, it's looking bad.
He doesn't like looking bad.
And that's why he goes to the doctor so much.
That's why he looks like that, and he's 112 years old. And he's still fucking jacked and has abs and shit because he
hates to look bad.
He's also the devil incarnate. So there's also that, you know. So
there's a reason that
So I mean, but this shit has to stop with this. I mean, they tried with Jim, but I don't know, man. Jim isn't really the I don't know if he's the poster boy for this because he didn't die of a drug overdose, but he lived that lifestyle that they all looked the other way on in the 80s, and that's fine and dandy and all, but I mean...
this type of disease is exacerbated by that kind of behavior.
Yeah, and they cut out chair shots now, and they try to limit head injuries and shit like that, and they hire guys that aren't out there. They hire guys that are mainly kind of more... corporate citizens, I like to call them, type of thing. Like they're kind of more clean cut, which means they'll get arrested less and also will not be as entertaining on television is the difference. These guys were psychopath fucking circus performers. They're entertaining people. Jim the Anvil is a character. He's a silhouette. You could see him. He's a character. None of the guys now are like that. So it's like some of them
type
are.
Of being.
Exactly. They're just a different type of cat, just a different deal. And Rock's also a third generation guy and coming from both fucking sides. And he knew that business. Like even when he was playing college, he knew I'm going to probably be a wrestler someday, I'm sure.
And I'm going to be fucking amazing.
And I'll be great at it.
The richest one ever. And
pretty fucking much. So that is Jim the Anvil Neidhart. It's quite the goddamn tale. And
I grew up with a dude with the last name of Neidhart, and I had my fingers crossed that you were going to say his name in like 79 was born. I would have been like, I fucking know that guy.
I know that fucking guy. No, 3 daughters, so no sons for you to know. If you like that story, there is a way to tell us about it. You can go on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. Give us 5 stars. Doesn't matter what you say. Tell us you're following instructions, following directions. It's not for our ego. It's really just to climb the charts. Also, on any other format that you listen to, please rate and review if you can. It really helps us out.
But give it a shot.
We think it helps. We think so. Stitcher, Spotify, whatever the hell. I don't know. If it's up there, do it. Do that. Also, head over to shutupandgivememurder.com for all of your merchandise needs. Tons of cool stuff up there. New merchandise all the time. Sarah's working her ass off on the merch, getting t-shirts up that you guys like. And like we said, the leggings are fixed, and we have skateboards. And
they're good ones.
Get on there. Check out upcoming live shows. None of them are up there right now, just a sold out one in Nashville. But we're going to be posting a shitload of live shows coming up, so you can check that out. Also, follow us on social media. You can do that. We are at Crime and Sports on Twitter and Facebook, and at Small Town Murder on Instagram. Follow us for that. That way you can know about those live shows before they,
before they're
sell.
sold out.
Yeah, exactly. That helps a lot. Sometimes we'll announce them on there, and then we won't be able to announce them for a week on the show, and then you don't have tickets because social media people go. That's the thing. So that's what happened to Minnesota, and they were like, "What the fuck?"
I didn't do it.
Follow social media.
Tell your
We're
neighbors.
sorry. Yeah, do that. Yeah, do that. Also, from there, you can be a hero, a goddamn hero, who we're going to talk about in just a moment. All of these heroic, fantastic, fabulous people. You can be one of our producers. And these are the people that support our show and really make this show possible, and the people who we're indebted to forever. You can be one of those people very easily by going to patreon.com/crimeinsports or head over to PayPal and use our email address, which is crimeinsports@gmail.com, to make a one-time donation there. And God, every cent is so appreciated. I'm telling you. And Jimmie, I gotta say, why don't you do me a favor right now and hit me with the list. Hit me with it like a chair in the head, Jimmie. Right now, hit me with it.
This week's executive producers are Mike and Desiree Ramirez in Texas. We met them at the Dallas show.
Thank you.
Justin Miller, Mike Kennedy donated twice. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Kat Brinker, congrats on a new career. She's not working for the government anymore,
hey,
so she
look
sent
at
a little
you.
more. Thank you, Kat.
You so much, Kat.
Crystal Gennaro, Ariana Light, Andrew Corey Elkins, that's what that is, and then Doug Kiefer, Doug Kuiper, two shoes.
Oh.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know, but thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Shit, we
and
sure
his
appreciate
wife,
you.
too. Damn it, I didn't write her goddamn name down. What a dickhead.
Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry. I'll find it next week. Thomas Smith, Sarah Kula, Melissa Lynn, Shauna McCarroll, James Fraker, Pickle Bean, Katie Holland, Pong Sot, Dylan Hauer, yes. Brendan Abels. Every week.
We love Brendan.
He's so nice.
Thanks,
to
Brendan.
Us. Janice Hill, Zach Dubois, Jesse Hartman, Amanda Hostlin, and her twins, Harper and Delaney. She wanted to name them Jimmie and James, but they came out as women. So
that would have been, James is an odd name for a girl.
It's a little tough.
You could probably pull off Jimmie, maybe, like Charlie or something like that. James is not.
Jimmie or something.
Yeah, James,
you get around
that's not going to work.
Gary Howard, Hannah Simmons, Felicia Newton. No. Shit. Yeah. Keisha. It's Keisha Newton. Got it. Steve Schnell over there in Philly.
Hey, heavy metal scientist, my man.
Joe Guernsey and his girlfriend Shelby. Happy birthday, Shelby.
Well, happy birthday.
B. English, Jason Fuller, Heather Faller.
Full.
Yeah, he's going to be jacked about this one. Drew Shockley, Reagan Shalkley, Amanda Tucker, The Russian Goat, Peyton Meadows, Eric Langenecker, Sheldon Hall, Karen Rogowski, Ashley Vio, Jesse Witt, Jesse Pitts, Melissa Thorson. Talk to Clay again. That's what he wanted us to beg her to do, is to say her name so that she talks to him again.
Okay.
I don't know
to
what
Clay.
You fucked up, Clay.
Well, if you want her to talk to you, give her money.
Right. Don't give it to me.
Don't give it to us. Give it to her.
Melissa,
directly.
Go in the room and tell him that he's an asshole. He could have bought you flowers.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I'll keep flower money for myself.
Martina Liluanga, Regina Kudajarov, Heidi Porter, James Martyr, and his 1-year-old. I forgot her name. God damn it, but his daughter just turned 1.
Well, she won't hear it.
Now she won't hear it
but
anyway.
Thank you, young daughter.
Christy Flatyard, Jennifer Balbo, Tyler Gwill, Dave Allen, Will Poindexter, Chelsea Morgan, Victoria Viakovsky. I almost got it. I'm sorry, Victoria. Slack Willamette, Amy Spicer, Tuamis Brigatti, Olivia Reed, Marion Marion Marunich. That's it. Elizabeth Wolfinger, Mike and Desiree Ramirez. I said that a minute ago. Alyssa and Barbara Rouse, Andrea Reynolds, Holly B, Brittany Butler, Margie Coonsey is back.
Good to see you again, Margie.
Freak Rolling, is that right? That's got to be a thing.
Okay.
Listen, I don't know. Alyssa Katu, gotta get this right. Katu Ogno. Catuagno.
Catuagno.
Oh, I can't do it. Jake LeBeer, Aaron Olivia, Jasmine Nicole, Matt Dietrich, Olivia Herman, Joe Cullen, Jordan Bennett. Thanks, Jordan. Rich Latch.
Definitely.
And Jordan has a great story that she was listening to us and talking about it in our fitting room, and then the door swung open, and there was a girl there with boobs out, and then that
a good story so far.
Yeah, she saw great boobs, and then that same woman showed up to her door to sell her something, and Jordan was,
I've seen your boobs.
yeah, and she said they're great. So good for you, girl with great boobs in Canada.
All right.
Rich Latch,
great Canadian boobs.
Find me on the internet and tell me all about it. Don't do that. No. Don't do that. Layla Sheikh, yes. Rich Latch, I said that. Krister Hanoi, Chris Henson, Dana Papalia, Allison Morris, Suzanne Larson, Elaine DeCoste, Kelly Higby. Happy birthday to her husband Michael. And seriously, don't find me and tell me about your boobs.
Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah. Thank you guys for everything you do. We can't do it without you. Thank you guys so much. And Jimmie, what if they wanted to tell you something? How could they do that this week? How could they find you with 55 OxyContin pills? How could that happen?
You can find me at Whisman Sucks, WHISMAN Sucks on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. And I'm jacked to see you guys out in fucking Nashville.
Oh, we're excited.
It's going to be a great time. I'll see you guys there. What about you?
Can't wait. You can find me at Jimmie P is funny, or just copy and paste my last name from the show description, because you'll misspell it and then it won't be any good to you. So do that. Follow us and keep coming back week after week. More crazy stories coming up. We really have a slew of wild ones coming your way. So stay tuned. Crime and Sports is only going to get crazier and crazier. Live from the Crime and Sports studios. We will see you next week.
Bye.
If you like Crime and Sports, you can listen early and ad-free now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts. Prime members can listen early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Before you go, tell us about yourself by filling out a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.
A few miles from the glass spires of Midtown Atlanta lies the South River Forest. In 2021 and 2022, the woods became a home to activists from all over the country who gathered to stop the nearby construction of a massive new police training facility, nicknamed Cop City.
At approximately 9 o'clock this morning, as law enforcement was moving through various sectors of the property, an individual, without warning, shot a Georgia State Patrol trooper.
This is We Came to the Forest, a story about resistance.
The abolitionist mission isn't done until every prison is empty and shut down.
Love and fellowship.
It was probably the happiest I've ever been in my life.
And the lengths we'll go to protect the things we hold closest to our hearts. Follow We Came to the Forest on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge all episodes of We Came to the Forest early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus.